meetings, we will be following Robert's Rule of Order. Please make sure that you have signed in to be called up on. Individuals wishing to provide public testimony should plan to speak for no more than 2 minutes. If there are a large number of speakers, I may reduce the time per speaker to 1 minute and may limit the number of speakers in order to allow as many people as possible an opportunity to be heard within the 20 minutes period. So those of you coming in a group, you may want to figure out how you want to delegate your time. The deadline for written testimony and registration for video testimony was by 12 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th. Budget committee meetings will be following the same public comment protocol as the City Council meetings. The joint meeting of the City of Tiger Budget Committee and the Town Center Development Agency Budget Committee is now reconvened. Tonight's goal is to hear more information and make monetary decisions regarding the City of Tiger fiscal year 2026 to 27 proposed budget and Town Center Development Agency TCDA fiscal year 2026-27 proposed budget. Let's start by asking Committee Secretary Aaron McCool to conduct our roll call.
Aaron McCool is present. Ethan Postrel. Present. Derek Lawson. Kelly Piment.
Present.
Bill Lewis.
Present.
Yusuf Alouzi.
Present.
Jeff Darland.
Present.
Mayor Hu.
Here.
Councillor Wolf.
Here.
Councillor Gadusi.
Present.
Councillor Robbins. Councillor Schlack.
Here.
Councillor Shaw.
Here.
Councillor Anderson.
Here.
With Councillor Hellick. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Aaron. And let's move on to approval minutes from May 11, 2026 meeting. Copies of the summary minutes from the May 11, 2026 minutes have been provided to you electronically in advance of the meeting. Are there any additions or changes to the summary minutes? I also entertain a motion.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
There's a hand raised on the Teams. Seconded.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry if my voice is a little out. There is a change that I'd like to make on, it is, scroll up here. It's under item number 6, discussion of community development and private development.
Mm-hmm.
And it's item number, well, bullet, they're not numbered, that's not so helpful. So it's 1, 2, it's a third from the bottom in item number 6, and it says, the focus and charge is city related, not based on what private department wants. And I assume it was meant to say private development wants. And I also followed up with a statement of, certainly we would not want to bias the position in any way.
Thank you. Any other changes, addition? Council President Wolf, would you like to withdraw your motion and remake it?
Yes, I withdraw my motion, and I assume Director King, you have the words as needed. So I move to approve the minutes as modified.
Seconded.
All right, it has been moved and second. I will now take a roll call vote for the approving the summary minutes with changes. If you are in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. Aaron McCool? Yes. Ethan?
Yes.
Derek? Absent. Kelly? Yes. Bill?
Yes.
Yusuf?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Wolf?
Yes.
Councillor Gadusi? Councillor Robin is absent. Councillor Schlack?
Yes.
Councillor Shaw?
Yes.
Councillor Anderson?
Yes.
The motion is adopted by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee member present. Thank you. Let's move on to receive public comment. At the Budget Committee meetings, we follow the same public comment protocol as the City Council meetings. The protocol can be found on the city website and on the PowerPoint slides for this meeting. As a summary, remarks should be addressed to the Budget Committee as a body rather than directed to any particular member. Personal attacks or threats, disruption of the meeting, use of obscene, vulgar, or discriminatory language, or in any way discouraging anyone else from participating are not acceptable. I may interrupt members of the public speaking to Budget Committee if they are not following public comment protocol. And I and Budget Committee will enforce these rules uniformly and treat all perspectives and opinions consistently. If you wish to virtually provide testimony, please call 503-966-4101 or join the queue by raising your hand on Microsoft Teams. Or callers can use *5 to raise lower hand and use either the phone microphone button or *6 to mute and mute. Please state your name for the record. Please speak directly into the phone and limit your comments to 2 minutes or 1 minute, depending on how many people sign up to speak. Network administrator, how many people, are there any one sign up for the phone or video testimony?
There are no callers in the queue.
Thank you. Councilor Shaw, your hand is still up. Do you have anything?
I do. I apologize, Mayor. Chat's been turned off, but it looks like Derek Lawson cannot either raise his hand or turn his camera on. So just wanted IT to be aware.
Okay, so Derek is joining us. Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so we have 9 people signing up. So each one of you can have up to 2 minutes to speak. So when you call your name, please come forward to the microphone. And then there's a timer on the screen, so please I appreciate if you observe the time limit. So the first person I would like to invite up is Lori Joel. Hello, Lori. Yeah, is it green? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Hugh and fellow City Council members. My name is Lori Joel, and my husband Les and I have resided in Tigard for over 30 years, where we have raised our 2 children through the excellent TT system. Throughout the years, we have benefited and witnessed the multitude of social service programs that have impacted and supported and elevated our community. Resources such as free Storytime, Teen Hours, Safety Town, Parks and Rec scholarships, free community events, safe parking, Caring Closet, and the Student Health Center have all played significant roles in sustaining this community. One of Tigard's finest programs began in March of 2020 in response to the devastating effects of COVID. Hundreds of volunteers and leaderships of Margie Green and Maureen Wolf established a nonprofit called Packed with Pride. That program is still being utilized today. It is vital in feeding our families. And now, as of 28% of our residents are considered rent burden, that means that 50% or more of their paychecks are going towards rent. Homelessness is increasing faster than programs can even accommodate, and the cost of living is increasing far above the minimum wage. So now, as we are headed into these costs of more fuel and transportation, many families are trying to decide between what multitude of social services they may benefit from for maybe even just the first time. This is where the library social services positions are critical to connecting and navigating our resources that will be most beneficial to prevent individuals from falling through the cracks into hopelessness. The best and safest communities are always the ones that protect and serve our most vulnerable populations. So now is the time not to invest in bigger, shinier structures and instead prioritize what is best for these challenging times. 19% in the library budget, which is now vital and life-saving resources, feels like a slap in the face, not only to what the Tigard community voted for, but desperately what we need in the times to come. Without critical nonprofits, our community would be witnessing even more homelessness than we already have today. I believe it is imperative that the Budget Committee prioritizes the citizens' needs of today and balances a budget that is morally just for all.
Thank you. Next person I would like to invite up is Becca Reyes Geislinger. Thank you for the sounding guy.
No, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, welcome. You have, please state your name and you have 2 minutes.
Sounds good. Well, hello. Like Mayor Hu said, my name is Rebecca Reyes Geislinger. I work in Tigard. Whether you're on City Council or a volunteer for the Budget Committee, I'd like to thank you for continuing the crucial democratic tradition of listening to public comments. As members of the Budget Committee, you have heard many departments' proposed budgets for fiscal year 2027. It's up to you to accept or to reject the proposals you've heard. I've listened to the proposed personnel cuts for Tigard Public Library. The roles identified of adult librarian specializing in one-on-one job help, youth librarian specializing in teen programming, and the social services coordinator are all roles that focus on preventative services. I, like everyone in this room, have my own personal budget. I know how tempting it is to want to cut preventative care. As I look at my grocery receipts, my family could easily save $20 a year if we stopped buying toothpaste. Of course, we would lose those savings and then some at our next dental appointment. Cutting preventative care like one-on-one job help, teen programs, and social service navigation is a long-term expense that Tigard can't afford. I encourage you to reject the proposed personnel cuts at Tigard Public Library, and I encourage you to fund the library in full. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Next person I would like to invite is Derek Wright. Derek? Hi, Derek.
Hello.
Please state your name and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Derek Wright. I am a business owner in downtown Tigard. Had to write this down. I'm not great at public speaking, but I implore you to reconsider your decision to eliminate the social services coordinator position at the library. We currently have an amazing tool to assist those in the community that need help the most. This help provided the social services coordinator position can't be replaced by another librarian, a police officer, city staff, or elected official. Removing that tool means replacing it with the only tool we'll have to rely on, which is to call the police. I've been in business 7 years, and that's pretty much the only thing we can do. As a resident and a business owner, I have seen that the folks that in need of help get assistance and seen them in the community afterwards. I've known their names, I've talked to them. It's a huge difference when they find housing and they find help. And they get that from this resource. This assistance coupled with the policing has made it a safer place to own a business and more desirable for customers to explore our great city. Keeping this position makes keeping my business in downtown more desirable. Going backwards to what I've seen in the past 7 years since I opened my business, which is including 2 deaths that happened right next to my business on the trail, isn't something I would like to see. I don't want us to go backwards. I would like us to go forwards and use all the tools we can for the folks in our community that need the help the most. I think that's it.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
All right. So next person I would like to invite is Pam Michael. Good evening.
Good evening. My presentation is a simplistic version of what you've already heard, but it's certainly an advocacy of our Tigard Library. I'm a proud Tigard Library board member, and I appreciate that you all have very difficult and drastic decisions to make regarding the next budget cycle. But as you know, our Tigard residents appreciate and make use of a full range of library services provided to them at no cost. We all know that prices of everything are soaring. We also know that our inflation rates will continue to soar. Many residents currently can't provide or pay for their basic needs. The numbers in our previous library board library presentation, to have shown and proven that many residents rely on our library to assist them. Therefore, I implore you to reconsider the budgetary reductions you have chosen to make for our Tigard Library. So many more residents will suffer even more drastically than they currently do now. Please prove to all of our residents that the vital services of our library are there to serve everyone by reducing our projected budget cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person up is Jessica Fredrickson. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the Budget Committee, city leadership, and fellow citizens. Thank you, everybody, for your service this third long Monday night in a row, and for all the work that you have done in the weeks in between. My name is Jessica Fredrickson, and I work directly with 3 of the people whose positions will be reduced or eliminated by the proposed budget, and I just want to tell you a little bit more about them. Though Micah's official title is Adult Services Librarian, a better title would be Library Pinch Hitter. Micah always jumps in with a helping hand to fill the gap wherever that gap is, if it's youth services or our much diminished technical services team. Our one and only teen librarian, Lisa, has served Tigard teens in this community for 18 years. Those teens can, and they have spoken for themselves about her impact. I just want to say that teens do not show up like that for just anybody. Lastly, I want to tell you more about Rin, who is our one and only library social services coordinator. So I come from the Denver metro area, where social workers have been embedded into public library work since 2015. This is not a new thing. I was fortunate enough to work in a library system with 3 social workers on staff, and Rin does more than those 3 people put together, to be honest. The existence of Rin's position was a big reason why I applied to work at Tigard, because I thought, here is a city that cares about being a public library for everyone in the community. Whenever staff needs support, whether that is diffusing an escalated behavior situation or responding to a community member in crisis, Rin is there for both that community member and staff. When I had to call CPS as a mandatory reporter, Rin was there for me. When I had to help someone who came into the library because they were scared, because they had taken an unknown drug and they didn't know what was going to happen to them, Rin was there for me and for that person in that terrifying moment. I could go on. Cutting Rin's position doesn't make our community's social services needs disappear. It just makes those needs even harder to meet. It shifts the work onto people who are not trained or qualified to provide it. It eliminates a vital position from the library's person in charge de-escalation team and incident response team. And I know that council has heard previously from Stephanie about
Lisa,
the
your
challenges.
2 minutes up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
make a final plea to please reconsider.
Next person I would like to invite up is Roger Potoff. Roger? Hey, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Roger Potoff. I've lived here in Tigard with my wife for 29 years. And I am enthusiastically optimistic about the citizen participation that this set of issues has brought forward. I've never seen in those 29 years quite the kind of turnout and articulate explanation of positions as in this case. I've read each of the 40-plus written public comments posted to the city budget for this evening's meeting. Those comments overwhelmingly focused on cuts to the library with some criticism of increases to the police budget. I am here this evening to criticize constructively, I hope, that the budget line items and attendant explanations omit any reference, never mind focus, to economic development. The opportunities that exist in Tigard, for which we created the tax increment financing zone in 2006, And from my background in urban real estate development, consisting of over $3 billion worth of development in a corporate vein, the Hall and 99 intersection is probably 100% opportunity if properly presented and understood. And nothing has been done there in 20 years. It's still car dealerships and furnitures and some of the same strip mall. And it's a tremendous opportunity. So while we're talking about cuts and we're talking about the pain of those cuts, let's also include in our spectrum opportunities. Let's think big for what we can do with this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Next person is Brian Peterson. Good evening.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, my name is Bryn Peterson, Tigard resident for about 6 years. I'm a financial advisor and I'm chair of the LGBTQ Council at the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. My comments today are as a private citizen. They don't represent either of those organizations. I really care a lot about how we use our money, because money is energy. Wherever we send money, that's what we're investing in. And the budget document is a moral document. It shows what we care about. Also, when I see an opportunity for us to use our money more effectively, that's something that I really want to hone in on. Historically, this is from a scholarly article by Brendan Beck. He talks about, this was published in 2024 in the Journal of Criminology. Historically, there's been a negative correlation between welfare and punishment. Cities that have more of one have less of the other. Social services have been found to be effective at reducing crime, often in more durable ways and with fewer negative externalities than policing, although with longer delays. So this is a situation where it's not necessarily, we're not choosing between two bad choices, but we've got one where we can get a shiny new building and we can do something that feels really good, but that doesn't help us as much in the long term. Or every dollar that you put into social services actually ends up meaning that we have to spend less money on the punishment. Spending on police might increase demands on social services, whereas social service spending alleviates police spending. So this is a situation where we can use our dollars more effectively in order to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final person to testify is Matthew Alberson. Hello.
Do I push the button or?
I think it's a green.
Yes.
It's on. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for holding this meeting. I'd like to talk about the funding for the library services that is being considered for cut. As a published author of 6 short stories, 2 nonfiction essays, 1 thesis, 1 academic paper on Measure 110 and why it failed, and 25 poems, I believe that this is sending the wrong message to the literary community. Additionally, the library itself is a center of community engagement, an emergency cooling center if need be, downstream impacts on education and literacy for a state in which literacy is a concern at the state level. These are various reasons why we should not be decreasing the funding, but increasing the funding. I believe it's not enough to call for an end for austerity, but to increase the funding of this department as we have increased other departments. We found the money for increasing some departments, and we were able to create this political movement to have this new public services and police center. We built a model. Why is that same energy not being spent on a service that has measurable impact and downstream impact? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, so that's all the people who signed up.
I also signed up for public comment and I wasn't called. Lisa Elliott?
Oh. Yes, sorry for skipping you. Thank you for speaking up. Yeah, please.
Of course. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Lisa Elliott. I've been working in this community as a librarian for 18 years, though I'm speaking to you today not as a library representative, but as someone who's had the privilege of working with young people her entire career and is the parent of 2 middle schoolers. My approach with teens is always to ask them first. They are the scholars of their own experience. Only they can tell me exactly what they need in order to support them best. I rely on their expertise and wisdom, and I apply my own expertise in setting priorities for them. In the last few weeks, members of this community and citizens on the Budget Committee have been clear about what they need and expect from the City of Tigard. They are the scholars of their own experience. Please don't tokenize their voices. I ask you to listen and consider how you may align your priorities with them. Library social services coordinators are not a novel concept. They are not an extravagance. If, after all this testimony, you are still wondering why our library needs one, I promise you that there are experts here who can answer that question for you, and indeed already have. You only need to listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Apologize for missing you. Anybody who signed up but I haven't called you? Last chance. All right. So thank you. Thank you all for taking the time to come over this evening to tell us what you think. So next, Budget Manager James Kennedy has collected the written testimony that has come to the city prior to 12 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th, and has provided public comments to the Budget Committee ahead of the meeting. And those written public comments are also available on the city's website. Budget Manager Kennedy, please share the summary of the written comments.
Absolutely. So a total of 44 public comments were received between 12 p.m. on Thursday, May 7th and 12 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th, with the majority of those comments, 43 of them, related to the proposed fiscal year 2027 library budget cuts, while there was one additional comment focused on the backyard habitat certification program.
Thank you. And I just want to check one more time with our network administrator that there are no one signed up to provide testimony by phone or video.
There is still nobody in the queue.
All right. Thank you. So we'll consider all the testimony we received during deliberations this evening. All right, let's move on to the May 11 Budget Committee follow-up items. And Finance Director Kane will ask if the committee will present follow-up items.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the Budget Committee, members of the community. So for follow-up items, we have published the Q&A on the city's website. Both the Q&A from last session were posted online for budget meeting number 2, and then the Q&A for this meeting was published for tonight's meeting. And they were also provided to all the Budget Committee members in advance. So if there are any clarifying questions based on the response, I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions online or in person?
Looks like Councilor Shaw.
Councilor Shaw, question, comments?
Yes, hi, Mayor. Thank you very much. If I'm reading the information correctly, there is currently 2 limited duration positions. Is that correct?
3, right?
There are 3 limited duration positions that are proposed of not being renewed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Seeing none, so let's move on to Public Work Department presentation of budget. And Acting City Manager Brian Rager will now present the Public Works budget.
All right, good evening, Budget Committee members. Also joining me tonight is our Business Manager Joe Barrett and our Asset Manager Sammy Rico, and I will kick things off. We're pleased tonight to present the Public Works budget. And the timing of this is also great because it coincides with Public Works Week. It is National Public Works Week, as identified by the American Public Works Association. Every year, we join many other public works organizations around the country and honor the the men and women that do the hard work every day in designing and building and maintaining community infrastructure. That includes roads, bridges, water systems, sewer systems, public spaces, that kind of thing. At Tigard Public Works, we're proud of the men and women who work in our department doing that hard work every single day, and some of that work is not very fun. Think sewer cleaning for one of those things. But they do it with a smile, they do it with pride, and they're happy to serve our community. Next slide, please. So who are we? Public Works. I'll spend a few minutes just introducing the different divisions that make up our department. But basically, you know you have interacted with Public Works if you take a drink of water every day out of your tap, flush your toilet, and happy that things go somewhere else where you don't have to worry about it. You can drive down the streets and in a rainstorm, and that water magically goes somewhere else and is not flooding the streets, except we do have flooding every once in a while, but most of the time, the systems can handle the rain we get every winter. Next slide, please. So getting a little more granular into our department, we have our street maintenance division, and as you can imagine, takes care of all of our streets. Starting with funding, they are funded by the state gas tax revenue that comes into the city. They're also partially funded by our street maintenance fee that shows up on your utility bill every month. But they take care of many of the things you see listed on the slide here. In the wintertime, they're very popular, and dealing with if we have snow, they take care of the snow and ice, but day in and day out, they're responding to requests to filling potholes, dealing with street signs, and that kind of thing. Separate from that, we have a different budget for street lights and signals. We track that work separately, but it's also funded by the gas tax. And our street supervisor, Adam Jensen, oversees all of that, makes sure that if there's a problem with a signal, a problem with a street light, he is coordinating, taking care of those things. Next slide. Water and sanitary sewer, our water fund covers that. That's the monthly water rates that customers pay. And our water system serves not just Tigard, but we call it the Tigard Water Service Area. It's made up of most of Tigard, King City, Durham, and the unincorporated area of Bull Mountain. It's referred to as the Tigard Water District. Currently, we serve over 62,000 customers in that water service area, and we do that by way of 20,000 or more service connections from our pipe network. This is a critical system. It's highly regulated, and we're talking life safety here, so when you turn your tap on, you need to have confidence that what you're drinking is safe, and our folks take care of that for you. They're also available 24/7. Water lines wear out and they fail at inopportune times, and I know we just had one. We had a water main break last week, but our folks will respond at any time of night, any time during the year. That's why we have our Public Works on-call system. It's for after hours and weekends. Our sanitary sewer division is also highly regulated. It's funded by sewer rates, also paid on the utility bill. We are in a partnership with Clean Water Services. They're at the county level. They are the overall permit holder, and we and other cities in Washington County join with them as co-implementers of the permit. Our role with sanitary sewer, as far as maintaining the system, we are responsible for all sewer lines up to 24 inches in diameter. Next slide. Stormwater Division is also funded by rates, stormwater rates on the utility bill every month. Also very regulated. We respond to some mandated maintenance items that we have to adhere to every year. 3 primary objectives with this system. One is just to make sure we have enough water treatment and detention of stormwater so that we are meeting regulations. We're also responsible to make sure that erosion doesn't get out of control, especially with new development. Anytime you're digging, you got to make sure that when it rains, that we're not causing a mess in the streets or on other property. And then conveying that stormwater in a pipe system or sometimes open channel ditches, but mostly in pipe system, and that prevents flooding in the community. And there's also environmental benefits that come along with stormwater management, and that is also a place where our partnership with Clean Water Services plays a role. Closely related to the Stormwater Division is our Surface Water Management Division. So you can think of this group as taking care of the green part of our stormwater system. So that's any creeks that are on city property, our vegetated water quality facilities or vegetated detention facilities are taken care of by this team. Next slide, please. You heard a lot already about our park maintenance and our recreation divisions, so I won't say a whole lot there, but certainly if you have questions about Parks and Rec, please feel free to ask. We'll go to the next slide. Fleet and Facilities they are more of an internal facing divisions. They are funded by the Fleet and Facilities Fund, and that fund is fed by all departments in the city because everybody's in a building and many folks rely upon well-maintained vehicles to do their work. Next slide. Finally, we have our engineering and our administration divisions. So engineering, they're funded by an internal service fund, the Public Works and Engineering Fund. And this is the team that's at the front end of infrastructure, either infrastructure development in our private development team, or also with capital improvement work. So our transportation system plan, for example, would have maybe some new streets that might need to get built. Also, we have master plans and all of our other systems, water, sewer, storm, parks, and any new projects that get built starts with our engineering team, making sure that we're designing things well so that when it gets down the line and built, it can be well maintained by our operational folks. They also develop the design standards that they follow when they're building projects, and also that we expect our private development folks to follow. Finally, our administration division, that's where I'm located, and many other folks, Joe and Sammy, for example, provide the overall leadership for our department and overall budget management. You're going to hear about asset management and the culture that we're building into the department. Also included here is our emergency management group, and we also have our community engagement coordinator in administration. So at this point, I'm happy to turn things over to our asset manager, Sammy Rico, and she'll take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Good evening, Budget Committee. My name is Sammy Rico, and I am the Asset Manager in Public Works. I'm really pleased to be here tonight with you all to talk about asset management, what it is, how it influences the culture in Public Works, and how committed we are to delivering services to our community in this way. So what is asset management? It's a guiding framework and an international standard for how we plan, operate, and manage our infrastructure and services in a way that aligns with what the community is asking us to do to meet all of our mandated requirements and to strive for a lowest long-term life cycle cost for each asset. What does that mean? So an example for anybody who owns a house or drives a car, you do asset management. You probably do preventative maintenance on, say, your water heater, or you get an oil change. Why are you doing these things? It's to make sure that they function and they perform well, and that you get the full useful life out of those assets. Those are major investments that you're making, and you wouldn't want to replace them prematurely. You also might save money for the eventual replacement of your roof, ideally in advance of a major leak or failure. That's also asset management. So that's what we're doing here in Public Works. We're just doing it on a slightly larger scale. This way of doing business, there are a ton of benefits, and I couldn't put them all here, but I put a few. So it enhances our customer service, and it allows us to be proactive and sustainable, but mostly data-driven in our decision-making. And then it helps us to identify, manage, and hopefully mitigate costly risks of asset failures. So then on the next slide, I have a chart that shows the key elements of asset management. Don't worry, I won't go into detail on each one, but demand management, life cycle management, risk and condition, asset register, financial planning, and levels of service. So what does this practically look like in Public Works? It looks like a robust asset register. We have over 130,000 assets across our 8 infrastructure systems that are individually ID'd. They're located on GIS maps, like one on the previous slide. And we have all the attribution needed to track work against them. This also looks like life cycle costing. So we need to understand and plan for assets from cradle to grave. So that looks like in engineering, what Brian was talking about, with planning of something, and then how we plan to operate and maintain it, sometimes for over 100 years, and then to plan for the eventual replacement costs of those assets. And these all sound like really good things, and believe me, I could talk about them all day long, but why does it matter to the Budget Committee? It matters because when you look at our levels of service in Public Works, so this is how we right-size what we are delivering, what and how we're delivering services to the community, and then you combine that with life cycle costing. So what does it actually cost to deliver those services at the levels that are agreed upon? And then you consider the risk. It needs to align with your resources. And if it doesn't align with resources, then you have to make trade-off decisions, and sometimes those are budgetary trade-off decisions. So my last slide and my last shameless plug for asset management here, we'll talk about levels of service. So this is a core thing that we prioritize in Public Works, and it's a combination of these 3 things: legal requirements, community values, and technical requirements, but it all has to be governed underneath and align with council goals and the city's strategic plan. But the idea is that where we invest our time, effort, and resources should be driven by what the community says is important to them and at the level they expect, not more and not less. And then in a way that we can meet our mandates, what is governed by regulatory agencies, and then is performed in a way with operational best practices to be most efficient and to maximize asset performance. So we apply this lens, so levels of service, to every division in Public Works. So when we come to the Budget Committee and when we show up to deliver services every day in the community, this is what we're trying to do. This is how we, it's kind of our North Star. So asset management is not a standalone program, but it's embedded into each of our divisions, and so that's why we opted to talk about it here at the department level. And so that's why I was so happy to be here to talk about it today. With that, I will turn it over to Joe.
Thank you. Next slide, please. I do not think I'm going to match Sammy's enthusiasm for her program with a few of my slides. As you can tell, Sammy loves to talk about asset management because it is wonderful and it is changing the culture of Public Works. And we take that very serious, and we take those inputs into the budget we create and helping us meet some of the council goals that we're striving to. Before we go into some of our numbers, we want to touch on some of the projects and activities we're doing to meet council goals. Under Goal 3, cultivating Tigard is a great place to live, work, and play. Under Strategy 3.1, you can see reinvestments in our park infrastructure with projects such as the Bonita Park play structure and Woodard Park play structure. Build new parks and identify gap areas. Steve Street and Bagan that are coming on soon will be parks that are helping us meet that goal. Under Strategy 3.2, to invest in safety, connectivity, and adequate maintenance of our transportation network. You've got a revised street maintenance fee methodology that is in front of council now. And then enhancing the communication with the community through service requests that our department has undertaken in the last year. Next slide, please. Still under Goal 3, Strategy 3.3, you've got a pilot resiliency hub project that PW Admin and Parks are undertaking now to look at building future resiliency hubs throughout the city. The expansion of Tigard's CERT volunteer base, we've added 25 members over the last year. And then we initiated a resiliency assessment for critical city facilities, including our water system. Under Strategy 3.4, for providing meaningful community connections, you will see our recreation program continues to strive for new programming, including age-based programs to connect members of those age groups together, and then focusing on some high attendee events like concerts in the park and movies in the park. Next slide, please. Under Goal 4, to deliver resilient, sustainable, and well-maintained facilities, we continue to strive to meet all service standards that are expected by this community, and we use the National Community Survey to see if that's our North Star for meeting that goal. Under Strategy 4.1, plan for future while managing current facilities. Some projects like the library HVAC, providing maximum efficiency use using sustainable best practices, the library roof, which uses thermal efficiency for the building, and then incorporating LED lighting and the use of electric vehicles throughout this city where we can. Next slide, please. That leads us then to the bulk of the numbers for ours. And again, as a larger department, I'll probably glance through these really quick and council can ask, or budget committee can ask any questions they have. For street maintenance, you can see our requested budget for FY27. This shows about an 8% reduction off of last year, with ICAP transfers being the largest impact to this. One of the metrics we use to determine success for this division is our PCI, the Pavement Condition Index. We're striving to meet the council goal of 80 every year in this area. Next slide, please. As Brian said, along with our street maintenance is our streetlights and signal budget. As you can see, this is materials and services. It is repair of our current streetlights and signals and our electric to run them. Pretty simple. This is showing a small reduction off of last year as well. Again, in ICAP. Next slide, please. For water, which is dollar-wise our largest budget, we are showing a roughly 3% increase off of last year, and this is coming from a shift in our interdepartmental transfers as well. Our metric that we use for water is to ensure that 100% of our water samples meet or exceed standards set by the US EPA, and I'm happy we continue to meet that every year. Next slide, please. For our sanitary sewer budget, we are showing a 10% increase stemming from a significant increase in those same ICAP transfers. Our goal in this division that we have in the budget is to clean roughly a quarter of all of our system each year. We anticipate we will go up from last year's roughly 22.5%. Next slide. Stormwater, a small 6% decrease from last year. Again, same ICAP transfers. And our goal here, just like the last one, is to clean our system 16.5% in this one because we get a little bit longer out of a mandate. And we should be meeting that goal this year. Next slide. Along with the storm fund is our surface water management. This is showing a significant increase. Again, same ICAP transfers. And our goal in this group is to ensure that we are actually going out and doing vegetative maintenance on all of our water quality sites a minimum of 2 times a year. This is how we maintain a larger expense to go in and do full rehab on some of our sites. If we can get there at least twice, it keeps our costs down. Next slide, please. There's a little typo on this slide for engineering. We do have an actual budget decrease from last year. it should say this decrease is attributed largely to reductions in our materials and services and transfers. Next slide, please. And we have our PW admin budget, again, showing a significant decrease from last year. If Budget Committee is okay, I'm going to go straight into our fleet and facilities budget, which should have been part of this, but was actually scheduled to go last week. So I want to make sure that we include them with the same Public Works group. So Lindsay, can you slow down to there? There we go. So again, you had it perfect. There we go. So for our fleet maintenance budget, again, you will see a small growth from last year. This is largely, again, due to a shifting of some staff. We had an individual out for a significant period of time on leave without pay last year, so that's why you see a small bump from last year. The division is striving to meet customer satisfaction and uses work orders heavily to ensure that we're meeting that goal. Next slide, please. And for our facilities budget, again, you can see a very minimal growth below our CPI for the year for this one, and again, using the work order systems to ensure that we're meeting all of our customer needs. So that wraps up our budget presentation for our pretty significant and diverse department.
Thank you. Now it's time for Public Works presentation discussion. Ethan, please go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. I have a few softball questions. What's ICAP?
Indirect cost allocation. Sorry.
Do we explain what it is?
Yeah, so indirect cost allocation, as Eric explained last week, is how internal service funds receive their dollars. So if, for example, for fleet and facilities, if we focus on our fleet group, we're going to use something like number of vehicles assigned to each division to determine how much they have to pay in to meet the need. So it's just a transfer.
Thank you. I have a couple others. I think they're
Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed the terminology sanitary sewer. Is there like another version that's not sanitary? Is that like a distinction, or is that kind of more of a like a branding, you know, like a messaging, like a sanitary sewer message?
It's a great question, and depending on what city you're talking about, people will often refer to sewers, and they might say storm sewer or sanitary sewer. Also, our sanitary sewer is also referred to as wastewater. So I wish I could just give you one term, but we tend to say sanitary sewer, and that is our wastewater, and separate from the stormwater system.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, so you talked a little bit at the beginning of the presentation about which activities were funded by rates and such. So which are funded by the general fund? I know Parks and Rec. Which others are funded by general?
Currently in the Public Works Department, Parks and Rec receives a transfer from the general fund. And then due to the nature of the indirect cost allocation plan, fleet and facilities will receive some general fund dollars. And in theory, engineering, if they have a facilities project funded by the general fund, would be eligible for some general fund transfer. And as a like second cousin of that chain of indirect cost allocation plan, Public Works Admin would receive a little bit of ICAP dollars from the Parks and Rec divisions as well.
Great, thank you.
If I could just maybe add on to Joe's response. There are ebbs and flows year over year. So I know we had a robust conversation on the parks funding on May 4th. But as an example, back in fiscal year 26, there was I believe it was a $5.5 million project to invest in the library for the HVAC and the roof project. And so there are some charges that have to be paid for, like the engineering team, because they provided the project management for that project. So there'll be some general fund going towards them.
And so the library HVAC is the city's solely responsible for it. It doesn't come from the county, right? County's not responsible for it.
That's correct. The county does not fund any sort of capital infrastructure for the library. The city pays for that entirely.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. And thanks. I had a couple of questions, which I think I know the answer, but I kind of want to ask. When we go to the funding of the sanitary sewer and the stormwater, my understanding, I'm kind of looking for confirmation, is all of the system development charges really are apportioned to Clean Water Services, is how I understand it. And so I guess my question is, for the gap between where Clean Water Services picks up the sludge, so to speak, and where it leaves the house, like that sewer system that's owned by Tigard, do we have any strategy for apportioning capacity to existing versus expanded development? Like a sewer line gets enlarged to increase the ability to put houses in place X. Do we have a mechanism for that, or is that like Clean Water Services does? Do we have that, or is it just taken from the general funds for those two areas?
I wouldn't say the general fund, they're taken from their respective sanitary or storm fund.
So, yeah, so the ratepayer fund.
Correct.
It's the one, so regardless, I just want to make sure it's clear, regardless of any capacity development for increased growth, all of that is covered under.
Correct. We do not have, the city of Tigard does not receive any STCs for Sandy or
So
storm.
there's been no OS 223, like apportionment studies on any of that?
To my full understanding, that goes to CWS. They receive the STC dollars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it exclusive that we can't have one while they have one, or is it like you can have one or the other, or how could that work should we choose to go that way?
I don't think I could answer that tonight. I don't know if Finance Director King, we need to look into that.
And maybe that's a rhetorical question for the Finance Committee later. I guess the second question on the surface water management, only as, I hear the story on the parks. We're hearing this kind of growth challenge as more parks come online, the revenue to support their management. And I didn't see that called out here. And so I guess my question is, I know all of the swales and stuff at RT 1.0 they're kind of new. And do we have a feel yet? Is that going to be like neutral? Because it's not called out here, and I'm wondering where that's going.
We do. When River Terrace 1 was starting to be developed and built, we knew that that was going to be a significant growth impact for this division. 2 years ago, I believe, it could have been 3, I'd have to check on that. We saw that coming, and we had an actually almost doubling of our number of water quality sites. So we added 2 additional resource members to our team back then. For something like a River Terrace 2, we'd need to look at that same thing.
Okay.
Rick can speak more to it if we wanted to bring him up, but it's also a matter of the size and complexity of the facilities that were built out in River Terrace 1. They're much larger than some of the things we have throughout the city before. So we are constantly looking at that and being prepared for what's coming, especially when they come off warranty. We need those resources in place.
I was just wondering, so you kind of got ahead of it before it launched. And so the strategy would be to kind of, following the same path without any change, would be to do the same thing kind of ahead of River Terrace 2.0.
Before they're off warranty,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yusuf.
Thank you, Manager Barrett. Quick question on the metric for PCI. I assume there's a dollar amount associated with going up that scale, because you said you want to keep it around 80. I just wanted to, go ahead. I was just curious, because I see it's at 78. Are we in danger as we continue to move forward in years of that number continuing to fall, or do we see that going to stay steady around 80?
City Engineer Wisniewski will talk more about this during his presentation, but it's going to be an ebb and flow of the streets that are also within our pavement management plan, as some of the more complex streets starting to slide down into, well, I should say slide down, slide up into the urgency to need to do them. Our PCI might fluctuate a little bit as some of those more large streets start to deteriorate a bit until they're actually rehabbed. So as long as we're hovering around 80 and not falling to like 70s, we are doing a good job to maintain our streets within an adequate funding amount.
So projections-wise, though, you're not worried about that falling down to like 70?
I'd have to let Joe.
Okay, no worries, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Nobody online? Okay, so thank you very much. All right, for our next discussion or next presentation, I will invite our city engineer, Joe Wendowski, to cover the capital improvement plan budget. Good evening.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and committee members. For the record, I'm Joe Wisniewski, City Engineer within Public Works Engineering Division. Tonight, we're going to talk about the capital improvement plan. The first thing to note is that it's a 5-year longer range plan for our capital projects, but the committee is really focused on fiscal year 27 approvals or apportionments for the project, or excuse me, for the CIP, and I'm going to use CIP throughout the presentation. That's what I'm talking about, the plan or the projects within it. But we have to do a 5-year forecast to make sure that we have a reasonable plan on being able to fund the projects, allocate resources to each project. Without that, we couldn't be successful because we wouldn't have that certainty that the out years would be fundable or able to be achieved in those out years. So next slide, please. I'm going to take a few minutes just to focus on the development of the CIP, talk a little bit about our engagement and all the effort that goes into developing a requested and then ultimately the proposed budget that's in front of you today. So what is the CIP? It contains projects across all of the systems that you just heard about from Public Works, ranging from parks, stormwater, sanitary sewer, facility projects, the drinking water system, and streets. And typically, they have a minimum cost of $50,000 or extend the life of an existing asset by 5 years or more. And that's where we would call a project like major maintenance that you'll hear about throughout tonight. There's a robust public involvement process in all of this. I'm going to talk about system planning and all these documents that we put together that really guide project selection. But the public involvement includes reaching out to community members when we're doing the system planning, hearing what the needs are of the community, comparing that to regulatory agencies and all of our requirements that we're mandated to meet, and then coming to all of the various committees that the city has. There's a Transportation Advisory Committee, the Water Advisory Board, Park and Rec Advisory Board, just to name a few. And then we compile all the feedback from that effort. It goes into our system planning documents that ultimately produces a project list and goes through a robust prioritization process of applying an equity lens, budgetary lens, making sure that things can be afforded. And then that gives us that list of projects that we then take into the budget process where we're at today and start matching the top priority projects with the available funding that is multiple different revenue sources in each system, and start working through various competing interests to come up with the proposed budget that you have in front of you today. The other part of this is the asset management cycle that Sammy was talking about. So we're really trying to apply that lens as well. And so as we deliver additional system plans in the future, there is now going to be asset management chapter in each of those plans that talk about being good stewards of our resources, primarily funding, and making sure that the life cycle costs are managed and minimized as much as possible. Next slide, please. There's a lot of numbers and data on this slide here, but the intent of this slide is to show you each system that we have, or system plan, also known as master plans, the current adopted date for each system plan, and then the right two columns show the proposed update where they're funded in the current CIP, or sorry, not the current, the proposed CIP. And then once the system plan is adopted, we have a proposed SDC or rate analysis also proposed in the CIP. You'll see two of them, the sanitary sewer and the stormwater, do not have a project or a date listed for the rate analysis, and that is because they're driven by CWS, Clean Water Services. In the sanitary sewer system, they do have a document called the East Basin Plan, and then that feeds into our local sanitary sewer system plan, which is currently being updated right now, and we're looking at coming to City Council this summer for adoption of that plan. Other plans that are underway or soon to kick off is the water system plan this coming fiscal year. The stormwater system plan is starting right now. The facility system plan is a new document that we're creating, and that is underway as well. And then the park and rec system plan is scheduled to start very soon. So there's a lot of planning effort underway. Coming into next year's budget cycle, you'll probably hear a lot more proposed new projects being added to the CIP, because all of these documents are going to update the project list and the needs for the community. And we'll be adding projects in that fifth year. I may have failed to mention it's a 5-year CIP plan. So we always try to add projects in that fifth year that slowly start working their way up to near term for delivery. With that, next slide, please. Talk about the engineering division, how we're staffed or resourced. We have 21 FTE in our division. We kind of cross over amongst the two groups. It's the capital improvement delivery team and then also the private development engineering and permitting team. We kind of work hand in hand, but primarily we have 10 FTE that are focused on delivering the CIP. And then there's 7 folks in our private development and permitting group that work on plan review, permitting, and inspection for the development projects that are privately funded coming into the city, but they also permit and inspect our capital improvement projects. So there is some crossover there. And then we have 4 FTE that are administration and overhead positions. It would be myself and the assistant city engineer, along with a management analyst, Laura, that's here tonight, and our senior admin that provides support across the entire division. The pie chart was also shown last week when we were talking about the trends in private development, and we had an error on that slide that carried forward previous years of effort for our Tyler implementation. So this is the updated pie chart that removed that error. The one thing that we started talking about last week and is still shown here is with that trend downwards of workload in private development, we are using staff in fiscal year 27 that is cross-trained from our private development group to work on our capital improvement plan. And that is being offset by funding that has been budgeted towards consultant effort, primarily for permitting and inspection services that would have been outsourced. Because of the workload being a little bit light right now in private development, they are able to provide those services internally. And the good thing about this is if private development tends to come back next summer, we can adapt quickly and rely on the consultants to pick up that workload again and not have impact to our level of service for private development or the CIP delivery. Next slide, please. So the other thing I want to cover tonight is just highlight new projects that are proposed in the CIP that have not been introduced in previous years or in the current adopted budget. With all the system planning effort underway right now, we have a few systems that do not have new projects proposed. Expect that to change in the coming years. However, we have, I think, 8 projects to highlight tonight across the sanitary sewer system, stormwater, parks, and facility system. This is just a summary slide, so I'll go into more details. And next slide, please. So the first project is in the sanitary sewer system. It's our cured in place pipe program. In the current budget, we had a CIPP project, and that was focused on trenchless repair and lining of existing sewers, both stormwater and sanitary sewer. That is a very cost-effective approach to maintaining our lines that are aging, and may have some root intrusion or we call it I&I, some infiltration of groundwater into that system. This allows us to come in a very low impact to the community, to traffic, sometimes even do it at night. And it's really a day or two of effort, and we're out of there without having to dig up a neighborhood and do a conventional dig and replace type project. Each of these slides covers the tie to either a strategic plan, a goal, council goal. So for this one, we've identified that it meets the community promise for economy, one of the E's there, and it's really because of that significant cost savings to delivering this work compared to dig and replace. We're saying it's approximately 40 to 50% less expensive than conventional replacement methods. This new program is no longer a project, it's now a program that we're requesting, and it would be ongoing each year. And the idea is that we would compile from our maintenance staff known locations of issues here, from routine video and cleaning that need this treatment. We would do a year of design, and then on the second year, we would do a large construction bid package, and then keep alternating every other year that process. Next slide, please. So this project, and I think the next two or three, all have kind of the similar story of how they started. We have a existing program called Major Maintenance in almost all of our systems. In our stormwater system, we have a major maintenance program that typically handle projects that are larger than what a normal routine maintenance repair would be, that would be handled by the operations staff, but not quite to the scale that would be a standalone CIP project. So typically around that $50,000 mark. And so we have a couple projects this year that are being added because they came to engineering from our operations crew of a maintenance concern that they needed some assistance on. And once we got into evaluating the projects, we realized that they're much larger than what we could handle under major maintenance. And so we're here proposing this as a new project for the next fiscal year, and primarily showing that it's needed next year because of impacts to environment or public safety. For this project, there's an existing storm line that is undersized and results to damaged property during heavy rains. I believe it's located just off of Bull Mountain, off of the Aspen Ridge. It's kind of a loop, and it's just the overflow or causing severe erosion and property damage. So we don't want to wait for multiple years to bring this in towards the end of the CIP. It's more of an immediate need. So that is a new project. Next slide, sorry. Similar with Beagle Court. This project is causing bank erosion and impacting a pedestrian path, and potentially, if it goes unmanaged, it could lead to utility damage. So storm or sanitary sewer line breaks would be the result. And this one, we're tying to Council Goal 3 because of the making sure we have safe and healthy systems for pedestrian access and recreation. This project is a two-year project. It's proposed for fiscal year 27 and 28. Next slide. And also in the stormwater system is Southwest 80th Court outfall improvement. This is over years of stormwater runoff. It's a outfall from the stormwater system off of Fannel Creek Loop in 80th Court, where it outlets to the Fannel Creek, and it is potentially causing private property damage and a storm pipe failure. And it's proposed for fiscal year 27 and 28. And one of the E's in the community promise is environment. If this goes unmanaged, it's going to lead to continued erosion, impacting the creek, and then also the private property could be damaged. Next slide, please. Moving to our park system. This is proposed as a new CIP project. It's Beggin Wetland Park Playground Phase 2. However, it's more of a continuation of the current budgeted Beggin Park project, and it's ultimately needs to be phased because we're coordinating the work at Beggin Park with a large utility project that Clean Water Services is delivering. Without phasing this, we would either have to delay the entire project for Clean Water Services to complete their work first, or what we're doing right now is we're doing a smaller phase one, and then when Clean Water Services completes their work, we'll come back through and complete the park improvements. We felt it was our responsibility to try to still get some improvements out there early, so to move forward with phase one as it's currently budgeted and come back with phase two. Right now, we're expecting it to be fiscal year 29 and fiscal year 30 for that project, but it's really contingent on when Clean Water Services gets the Metzger trunk line project completed. And then the community promise for equity here, this location is in an identified gap area for park services from our Park and Rec system plan. Next slide. Staying in the park system is the Cook Family Park Artificial Turf Replacement Project. This is following good asset management practices, and the life cycle for the existing turf out there is expected to be about a 10-year life expectancy for when you have to replace turf. As we approach this project, it'll be in fiscal year 31, we'll evaluate the condition and make sure we replace the turf at the right time, but we expect it to be around that 10-year mark. And it allows the city to continue to provide safe field conditions for Little League, and it encourages a longer season of use as well compared to conventional grass turf fields. Next slide, please. And then the Main Street Fannel Creek trail improvements. This is a new project, but it's more of a new project for good accounting practice for this project. There's a current project in the CIP, the Nick Wilson Memorial project downtown, and the scope has significantly changed. So to make sure that we're accounting for the project expenditures appropriately, we're proposing that we close the current CIP and start a new project number for this project. It's going to include resurfacing the existing boardwalk, making some trail improvement crossing at Main Street, and then some beautification of the downtown Main Street Bridge and providing a bench and a memorial area down there as well. This is proposed for fiscal year 27 and 28. Next slide. In our facilities system, we are proposing a facilities major maintenance program. I believe this is the only system that we currently have that does not have a major maintenance program. And we've identified that there is a gap between what our facilities department can complete under normal routine maintenance and then what we can complete within the actual capital improvement plan, larger scale projects. So the major maintenance program will allow us to have a full set of projects that we can handle, have appropriate funding to maintain our facilities. And this is aligned with Council Goal 4 that allows us to maintain our aging of facilities and infrastructure and applying the asset management principles that you heard about earlier. And it's proposed to be an ongoing annual program. Next slide. So that was a summary of all the new projects. And now, where does the money come from for funding the entire CIP that is proposed? And these are large dollar amounts. This is for the entire 5-year capital plan. We'll start by the largest bucket of money is our utility funds. About $134 million come from the rates that are paid monthly on all of our utility bills. And then the next big bucket of money is the system development charges that come from what developers pay for their impacts to our existing system or expanding the system. This is things like storm and sanitary sewer goes directly to CWS, but we have the park SDCs, transportation SDCs, just to name a few. Then we have about $43 million of gas tax, which is state gas tax and a local gas tax, and other transportation funds that I believe is the county transportation development tax that we're able to collect from developers, and the city retains that money for city projects. We have about $5 million in grants that are currently known for projects and shown in the CIP. This number can change drastically as more grants are applied for and awarded as time goes on, but we currently have about $5 million in our proposed CIP. And then there's 2 TCDA funds that I think you'll hear more about later this evening, but about $12 million in the Tiger Triangle and just over $1 million being spent in downtown. And then one thing to note is developers also provide a large amount of what we call contributed capital, and that is assets that developers are required to build as part of their projects, or they voluntarily build that become city assets after it goes through our land use process permitting, and then there's a warranty period that they have to maintain it for a period of time, which is nice because it gives us time to prepare for maintenance plans and making sure that staff and resources are available for it. But there's also a financial component of contributed capital that comes into the city from the development community. Next slide, please. So what we get for our investment, this is a summary of each system, the number of projects by year, and the total investment that we're putting into it. So I won't read each line here, but it gives you an idea that in the first 2 columns, fiscal year 27, that the Budget Committee is considering for approval right now, the number of projects and the magnitude of investment for the coming year. And then the right half of the chart shows what that full 5-year proposed outlook includes for our projects. Next slide. So it's kind of an exciting slide to see each year, and it seems like each year the list is getting longer, which is makes me happy. These are projects that are expected to close in our current fiscal year. We do have one project that is not shown on the screen. It is our Roy Rogers Road project. This was a county-led project. I think it was completed about 6 or 7 years ago, but the city had an obligation to pay 1/3 of the cost of that project. And through an IGA agreement with the county, we were making annual payments towards that. We were expected to pay it off in fiscal year 29. However, in that agreement that we have with them, we were allowed to use the amount of transportation development tax credits that we issued to developers for work that they completed along Roy Rogers Road to offset what we owed the county. So a really good thing to highlight on that project, the original cost estimate over the entire life of that project for the city's obligation was about $9 million. Due to project savings, due to the TDT credits that were issued to developers, the final cost to the city is $4.9 million, and we just received our final bill from the county of $80,000 to be able to pay it off this year and close out that project. It's a savings of over $2 million to the city of what we expected to pay. But note that that savings comes from the credits that we gave developers for work that they completed. So if I add up some numbers there, the original $9 million estimate that we thought we were going to have to pay, even if we add the $2 million of credits to the final amount we paid, that's still about $7 million of investment by the city. We still came in about $2 million under what we expected. So the savings of that will hit the TDT fund, and that can go to other larger projects along our collector and arterial streets in the city. Happy to answer any questions about any of the other projects. I won't go through each project line by line, as members that have been on the committee before have probably heard about the projects in the past, and council members receive a quarterly update on the CIP as well about all these projects. And now that they're closing, they're kind of going to be old news here pretty soon. So things to celebrate. Happy to see those projects being completed. Next slide. Just to kind of close out, always good to kind of highlight some issues that we continue to track, or don't necessarily need to call them issues because some of the things are actually trending to be more positive, but inflation and project contingency has been an issue that we've been right-sizing in the CIP for a couple years now. I feel that we're getting the contingency part of this down pretty good. On early projects that are proposed to the CIP and are in those out years, we're carrying about a 30 to 40% contingency in our cost estimates and in the budget. And then as we work through planning level, design, get into closer to final design in the bidding process, we'll lower that contingency to around the 20% mark. And when we get into construction or nearer term, have more confidence in it, some of the projects even get lowered down to about 10% contingency. In the past, we carried a very low contingency, and when you start having issues with like supply chain or, COVID impacts and stuff like that, that really threw us a wild curveball. You don't have the contingency to handle those issues. So this stair-stepped approach to it is really proven to help us out the last couple of years. The other thing is the tariffs and the federal grant uncertainty. That's all over the map right now, so we're constantly tracking that and still chasing notice of funding opportunities when they come out and applying for grants. Fewer than in the past, but we're still going after what we can. And then the final one here is the contractor bidding climate right now. Just recently, we've bid multiple projects. City Council starting to see contracts come to them for approval at the local contract review board. And quite happy to say all of them in the last month or so have come in at or below, and some of them significantly below engineer's estimate. And we're having a lot more contractors bid the projects than we have seen in the past. So when there's issues maybe in private development or in other areas with the economy, it also sometimes can result to a benefit to public agencies in our capital projects, and we're seeing that right now. So there's a lot of balancing going on here, things that we're tracking, but hopefully this bidding environment continues for a little while and see some good project bids come in and report back to some savings in the future. With that, I think that's the high-level overview that I planned for tonight, and happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Joe. Committee members, questions or comments on the CIP plan budget presentation? Jeff, please go ahead. Oh, okay, Council President Wolf, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. This will be fast. Joe, thank you for the presentation. And just to confirm on the list of projects that were closed this year, you talked about Nick Wilson as really a let's close this because this new project will better define the work. I'm assuming that's the only one that's on this list because of that kind of accounting, or you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, just looking through it really quick, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is it Councilor Robbins first or Jeff first? Oh, Councilor Robbins, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Joe, for the presentation. I have a question, and we also reviewed this recently at City Council meeting, but I didn't ask at the time. The backing up to the slide where we talk about engineering division resource allocation, the private development engineering and permitting, those 7 FTE, are those funded from the CIP budget, or are they funded from the general fund?
So maybe Eric or some of our staff can jump in as well, but my understanding is when they're working on the private development side of the office, their revenue is coming directly from permit revenue. So the private developers are paying their permit fees. But when they shift over to the capital improvement projects or side of the office, they would be coming out of the Public Works Engineering Fund, which is made up of various utility fees and SDCs. I probably didn't do the best on that, or I'm looking to make sure I didn't miss anything. So, yeah.
Not the general fund, right?
So if we're working on a facilities project, I think they're in a way general fund gets to it, but maybe Eric can elaborate on that.
Clarify, and you did a great job on the explanation. Just as a note for private engineering, so in the engineering fund, there is a revenue source in the budget book called PFI revenue, and so that's the fee that developers pay when they come in for a permit review. And so those revenue streams directly support paying for the private development engineers. And that does see ebbs and flows year over year. Sometimes you see boom years, sometimes you see more downturn years.
So forgive me if I'm misremembering or misunderstanding, but so these FTE that are kind of moving back and forth, that's because at some points they don't have as much to do in the CIP?
In the
Or
private
in the
development.
private development, so then they go to the other side, I see. Because I just want to make sure that we aren't, but I guess since they may or may not be funded through the general fund, I just want to cover the fact that could we cut any of those people since they don't have stuff to do sometimes in the private development? Because we have many other departments where we have people being cut. And so I just want to make sure, everyone's talking about fairness and looking at all of these different things. But, so I'd like to just hear about that. And sorry, I'm not very articulate.
Yeah, so the private development group, other than maybe the ICAP equation or how the indirects are factored into it, really doesn't have an impact to the general fund. All their work is focused on projects that are completely paid for by private developers through their charges that they have to them for their like plan review fees and inspection permit fees. And then when we shift them to capital improvement projects, the funding that they would be expending would be funds that are currently allocated to external expenses for consultants. And then it would depend on the project that they're working on. So if we were to put them on a facilities project for inspection or permitting, then there could be a tie to general fund. But the way our division is budgeted right now, I don't believe there's a direct tie to general fund other than the indirects.
I get that it's pretty complicated, but would it be fair to say that if we weren't able to move them over to engineering that's not private development, that if we weren't able to do that, it would make things maybe take a little bit longer, but not be a direct impact on the services, or would there be a direct impact on those services?
The impact I would see would be when private development gets back to normal levels, then there would be a level of service impact for being able to permit timely or complete inspections. There would be a significant impact to the level of service in the future. The CIP side of project delivery would maintain the same level of service we have right now because they would be augmented with consultants. So it would really be that level of service to the development community.
And how quickly does that fluctuate? Is that something that goes up and down month by month, or is this something that we're kind of planning for in the future?
I think right now we're seeing it, we're seeing a little uptick in inspections right now. And a lot of that is because there's projects that have been permitted for a period of time that have been in a holding pattern, and we're starting to see some home construction come back. So it's been a little bit month by month, but typically you see it coming. I don't have a time frame to give you, but there is some time to plan for it.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Thank you. And by the way, thank you for, I know I sent a lot of questions. I know, and I appreciate, I was playing catch up, so I appreciate your guys' patience. Specifically, I had two right now, and they're about projects which aren't on these lists, but they're on the budget. And the first is the ASR expansion feasibility study, right? Right now, that's sort of a combination, as I understand it, of like the preliminary planning and assessment of the whole system. And then like phase two is this exploratory drill, right? Do I understand correct that if that project were, and I'm not saying you said this, but my interpretation of capacity, that if that were broken into two different projects, like sub-projects, they might have different SDC allocations?
I think they would both be, so that project, if you were to split the two phases out or not, I would propose that we would put together the same funding stack. Because the first approach is the planning on where do we need to drill or could drill, or how feasible is it to evaluate wells in any certain location, but it's ultimately to evaluate additional supply for the city. So the end goal is really the same for both phases as far as from a funding standpoint. If we were to do phase one and we identified that we didn't have a place to drill, I would still propose that we use the same funding if we drilled or not.
So I want to seek to understand here. So in this strategy, we're saying that as we seek to get new capacity for growth, we're choosing to fund that through our current kind of ratepayer structure, as opposed to saying this is definitively for new growth, right? I don't think we can argue that it's not for new capacity. And you're saying that it's specifically, I understand the system plan part, but you're saying like going out and hunting for water is on the ratepayers as opposed to the people who are going to need the water. Is that what I understand?
No, it's.
It sounds aggressive. I apologize for
Yeah,
that. But I'm
it's.
trying to
Where the funding breakdown comes from is in our system planning effort. It identifies what the proportionate share of each project could be attributed to growth. And then that kind of sets the maximum ceiling of what we can apply the SDCs to that project. And then as we start to put together the budget and the requested funding stack, then we get into available funding, cash flow, and work closely with our finance department on what is affordable. And then sometimes, even though it might say an 80% rate, we might only be able to afford 60% of that specific fund. And then it is also acceptable to offset that with utility rates. And that's where we make the proposal, come to budget committee, follow fund policies, and have that conversation about how to fund each project. But yes, you could fund it potentially up to that percentage by SDCs based on
money were
growth.
available. And
Yeah.
I understand, believe me, this is not, I drink the water, okay? I flush my toilet, so I get all that. I guess I'm wondering, ORS 223 is kind of, I don't want to say it's prescriptive, but it's pretty definitive, right? And we followed the SDC calculation. There's a new SDC rate study coming up, but the last one had certain apportionments clearly allocated, and I believe it's even required that we calculate those during the development to ascertain. And I'm wondering, I couldn't find these, and so I'm wondering like how the public part of that apportionment happens, right? Because right now we see it in the budget. I'm coming in late to the game, so I apologize for that. But I'm wondering like how this would play out in a public forum so people have visibility to how these decisions are being made, right? And it's not on you, it's sort of the process I'm seeking to understand.
Yeah, I think it's, the public forum is where we're at right now.
Okay, no, that's fair. And I
yeah.
think, I guess the second one, and these are leading later, I want to talk about maybe timing because I don't want to be totally interrupted, but the second one is also a capital improvement plan for the, hopefully for the new public works building, right? And my understanding is a couple of years back, the water fund was used as the principal funding source to acquire the land, right? Arguably for a facility. They'll be part of that facility, but they're certainly not going to be the predominant player in that facility. And my understanding is at the time, or around that time, the council did, based on the discussion with Director Kang, the council did sign or voted on a statement of intent to repay. And I went looking for that. I couldn't find it, but I'm wondering why we didn't take the standard interfund loan approach, which we've done before to the TDCAs, right? And formally lend the money in a structured manner to obligate repayment with interest to the ratepayers as is traditionally done, right?
I can answer that question. So predominantly, right, if the water fund paid for the land asset, and so currently on the books, it resides on the books as a water fund asset. So, and absent any sort of development on that project, it would continue to serve as a water fund owned asset. So if the property were ever to be sold down the road, it would have to go back to repay the water fund.
Is there, I get that, and I understand that we also are trying to make things work and keep things going. I guess I'm wondering, the water fund is pretty specifically designed as to provide us water, right? And I don't think in the scope of that anyone anticipated being a real estate speculator, right? So to me, and this maybe is bordering up to emotion, to me a cleaner approach might be to formalize, recognize that transfer and move the fund balances kind of back where they are, which leads into a little bit of the upcoming water rate discussion, which I want to table for possible finance discussions. But to me, I think there's benefit in formalizing this. We've done it before in other programs, and I'm kind of curious as to why that strategy wasn't done here. Was it we need to do it, we need to act fast because the land is ready to go, or I'm just curious why that procedure was followed. And maybe, and the follow-up to that is, are there any obstacles to heading that way now retroactively?
So that's a bit of a difficult question to answer. So at the time, because I believe this was back in fiscal year 23 when this happened, so I'm just kind of going back on memory here. From a funding standpoint, because the intent was for Public Works to be a predominant user of that facility. That was the kind of the nexus and justification for using the water fund. And from a cash flow perspective, the general fund at the time was, continues to be strained. And so the intent would be that the land would reside and be owned by the water fund, rather than having it apportioned out before any sort of approved project.
Would that, I don't understand quite how water rates are determined. I've kind of looked and and so I'm wondering in the annual, if I think from a business perspective, annual determination of rates, you look at cash flow in, you look at cash flow out, you look at reserves, right? And so to me, I'm wondering if that balance, which doesn't show as a statement on the water flow reserves, if that's somehow trickling into impacting water rates, if the reserve balance, if you can look and say whether that is or is not impacting water rates. And there's another, to kind of follow on with it, there's a few of these water fund expenditures that are quite large, right, which have been depleting what I would call water fund capital reserves, and I'm wondering how this trickles into the overall picture is where this question, and this is part of what I would say justifiably cleaning up the books, right? I lend my neighbor some money, at some point I might want to put it on a document so I ensure that it comes back, because it's already 5 years later and you're going by memory, and these documents sometimes are hard to find, and the formal loan is always there in the CAFR, right? To me, I see that. That's my comment on that. And I don't know what the appropriate procedure here is for introducing a motion, but I would like to introduce a motion aimed in that direction to formalize that interfund transfer and clarify that on the books moving forward.
Point of order, is that relevant to the jurisdiction of the Budget Committee tonight, since we only have the authority to approve a schedule of appropriations for fiscal year 2027?
I apologize. I need some time to think on that.
Maybe we could table that, and I don't want to force, because there's some other things to get to, and I don't want to completely derail this evening with that, but maybe I would like to come back to that, possibly.
From an appropriate, so I apologize. I'm trying to think on the fly here.
Oh, no,
which
and
I'm
I
not
don't
the
want
best
you. I
at.
don't want you to feel. I want specific, accurate answers and knowledge about paths forward. I don't want to have stressed guessing.
Yeah, for the purview of the Budget Committee, since we are setting the purview of the Budget Committee to set appropriations, any sort of interfund loans must be authorized by City Council. So the Budget Committee would not be able to
Would a point, I guess maybe a question and clarification, would it be appropriate for the Budget Committee to refer this issue to the council as a recommendation?
Well, right now, the committee members serve on the Finance Committee, so.
Well, I don't know I think the Finance Committee starts in next, right, whenever.
Right.
From my perspective as just showing, my accountability to signing on documents, if I would request a loan, and I don't see how, the City Council is going to meet, so it doesn't seem like, it's an obstacle if they don't have time, I get that, and they need to review. But whether we request it now and they do it next week or a month from now, as long as the city council acts, I think my questions are resolved, right? So I would ask if it's
Yeah,
appropriate from this
we're
committee.
going to talk about additional motions,
Okay, so maybe we
amendments
talk
at the
about
end.
that at
Yeah,
the
we
end.
can
Okay.
table that until then, so.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Ethan?
Thank you. This question also about the new police public works property, not the land, but the building. If the bond measure passes tomorrow, I guess, would the proceeds from that bond be represented as a funding source of the CIP then going forward? And would the new building be an item of the CIP? Or is that, or, you know, bond-funded projects represented differently?
You're correct. So yes, if the bond were to pass tomorrow, then it would be reflected as a CIP. And you probably have noticed in the budget book, the project itself is not funded in there, absent any funding source at this time.
Okay. Any additional question on CIP before we move on to Town Center Development Agency? Seeing none, so thank you, Joe. Oh, there's, what? Okay, Councilor Robbins.
Not a question really, but just to reiterate that we cannot move funds from CIP to anything else, correct? So even if we think we could stop a project here and use those funds for somewhere else, we cannot do that. We cannot move that. Is that correct?
That is correct. All of our capital, you saw City Engineer Wisniewski's slide on the funding stack for projects. Those are all primarily from utility funds, SDCs, grants, and I mean, those are the primary gas tax, yeah. And so those have statutory restrictions on how they can be spent and cannot be used to fund operations other than the utility funds, but those are for specifically for those utility operations, not for general use.
Thank you.
All right. Don't see any hands online, so let's move. Thank you, Joe. All right, let's move on to Town Center Development Agency, TCDA, presentation of budget. And we have our Community Development Director, Sambal Kirkman. Good evening.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to switch our hats now to the Town Center Development Agency. So, good evening, TCDA Budget Committee members. Sambo Kirkman, Community Development Director. With me tonight is Redevelopment Manager Sean Fairley and Business Manager Corey Robinson. As I indicated last week, the Redevelopment Division in my department supports the Town Center Development Agency, and we are here tonight to go over the agency's proposed budget. Throughout the presentation, I'll refer to the agency as the TCDA. Next slide. The purpose of the TCDA is to revitalize City Center and the downtown, and the Tiger Triangle by attracting private investment and facilitating redevelopment. TCDA is a separate legal entity that is governed by the Tigard City Council as directors and the agency and with the mayor as its chair. Next slide. To meet the goal of revitalization, funding through the voter-approved tax increment financing TIF district was adopted at separate times for two districts, City Center and Tigard Triangle. TIF districts create a funding method by freezing the base of the property tax amount in a designated area. Any extra property tax revenue from new development or the incremental increase in tax revenue for properties in these districts goes to a special fund to pay for the construction of projects approved by the TCDA in these districts only. Next slide. Like other divisions in the Community Development Department, TCDA programs and projects discussed throughout this presentation aligns with Council Goals 1, 2, 3, housing opportunities, economic opportunities, and work towards making Tigard a great place to live, work, and play. Next slide. For the first TIF district, we will discuss the city center district with the boundary shown on the slide. It is the older of the two districts and was formed in 2006. For the upcoming fiscal year, the department proposes a budget of more than $970,000. This is based on the available funds from the income in this district minus the existing debt services. The following 4 slides will outline what the proposed budget will cover. Next slide. The first proposed project is Main Street Fano Creek Trail improvements. Improvements include refurbishing decking on the Fano Creek Trail Bridge and boardwalk near Main Street, decorative bridge railings, and a custom-designed bench. This project replaces the previously approved Nick Wilson Memorial Plaza project. This project is a continuation on improvements connecting the downtown area and Main Street. Next slide. In 2005, the downtown wayfinding plan was adopted by council. The implementation plan is the next phase of the project to begin engineering, permitting, manufacturing, and installation of signs. This phase is now in the capital improvement plan to continue its work. Next slide. One of our recurring programs is the TIF Building Improvement Grants that provides matching funds for businesses in City Center. In this current fiscal year, we have 1 grant submitted for higher ground counseling. Next slide. While TIF funds are restricted to construction improvements within their district, there is an opportunity for the city to capture costs associated with managing the TCDA and TIF-related work. The administration portion of the proposed budget covers these costs. Next slide. The second TIF district we will discuss is the Tiger Triangle area, with the boundary shown in the slide. The district formed in 2017 with areas generally bordered by highways 217 and 99W and Interstate 5. For the upcoming fiscal year, the proposed budget is $1.7 million based on the available funds removing existing debt services. The following 7 slides will outline what proposed budget will cover. Next slide. With the purchase of the former Tigard Cinema site, the project team looks to leverage the momentum of the purchase. The next phase is beginning planning, park design, and public engagement work. Next slide. The Red Rock Creek Enhancement Project is underway and part of this year and next year's CIP list. Funding will continue creek enhancements, sewer replacement, and stormwater facilities along Red Rock Creek. Next slide. Another project continuing from this fiscal year to the next is the Red Rock Creek Trail Highway 217 pedestrian bike bridge refinement study. The city has obtained a grant to study a bridge that would provide a key multimodal connection between downtown and the Tiger Triangle. The requested $50,000 is the required match for the over $680,000 provided through a state grant that is expected to begin this next fiscal year. Next slide. The proposed amount for the Tiger Triangle Transportation Improvements Program is to provide opportunities to fund quick projects like ADA curb ramps, street lining, enhanced crosswalk treatments for projects that arise in the Tiger Triangle. Next slide. The requested amount on the Affordable Housing Development Fund is a holdover from this year's budget. The requested funds are for Woodland Hearth, an affordable housing project that was previously awarded development assistance. The funds are provided to the nonprofit once the development is completed, which is expected in this next fiscal year. Next slide. Again, similar to the City Center program, this is a recurring program that provides matching improvement grants for businesses in the Tiger Triangle. In this current fiscal year, we have 1 grant submitted, the Falafel Express. Next slide. And again, like the City Center TIF district, the proposed administration amount for the Tiger Triangle is costs associated with managing the TCDA and the TIF-related work. The amount is restricted to administrative costs only. Next slide. So this concludes our brief presentation on the TCDA proposed budget, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. So let's move on to TCDA budget discussion. Any questions or comments? Bill, please go ahead.
I have a question on
Is your mic on, Bill?
I think the total amount for, well, first, let me say that where my questions are driving to is administrative costs. So in the Triangle, it's approximately 12.5% of the budget, and in downtown, it's over 20% of the budget. And I know part of this is based on the size of those budgets, but I'm wondering, is there any opportunity to economize through centralization? Is there any legal requirement that those administrative funds that administration can't be centralized, and then each TIF is charged against that based on their particular demands? And is there any opportunity to economize on that total cost through centralization?
The actual administrative work is centralized. That is the pulled amounts from each of the different districts to a centralized pot to cover the costs that the department and finance encumbers through the work that we do for both.
The second question I have is really just about the money left between, I guess, the TIF amount. I think downtown it's 1.15 million, something like that. What I noticed when I did the math was there was about $58,000 difference between the proposed budget and the amount of the tax increment. But downtown, it's $178,000. So I'm wondering, is there any reason why we aren't allocating that $178,000 to projects this year?
I would probably say part of this is because determining what we have the availability to work on. There's a limited amount of money both that we can pull together for possibly larger projects as we move forward. As we look at the Fano Creek project, the funding that we're asking for this year covers what we expect to be able to do within this fiscal year itself. So there is carryover for probably additional construction costs and other costs that may arise for all these various projects, as well as the potential for new ones. So with the limited funds that we collect, it's again back to economy of scale when it comes to future projects that the TCDA may be interested in completing.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks I love what you guys do, actually, so thanks. I did have a question. It's going to sound a little bit like a broken record, I'm sorry. On the 94049, which you mentioned, and you budgeted $352,000 for the Red Rock Creek restoration. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, and you're sorry about this, but when this ballot 34-275 was voted in, the simple words, I have it printed out here, Tiger Triangle generally between blah, blah. Plan currently includes many types of projects such as Red Rock Creek restoration. And so it's highlighted in the original ballot measure along with the phrase no new taxes, that this was anticipated, at least I think it's reasonably safe to say it was anticipating being covered by the TIF for the Tiger Triangle, right? And I'm wondering, you might or might not agree with me, but I'm wondering how the apportionment between sewer, stormwater, and the Triangle Fund was determined, because the Triangle Fund's contributing less than, I think, 10%, maybe less than 6% on this particular CIP, and I'm wondering how we apportioned what needed to happen versus what needed to happen to allow for the high-density, swale-less development that we're trying to push on the Tiger Triangle. And so I'm wondering, if you could speak a little bit to the process, because I know there's a lot of collaboration with Clean Water Services, right? And my suspicion is a lot of it was probably driven from their demands. And I'm wondering how that whole project scope turned out in terms of building in the capacity for this increased density.
Well, I would probably defer to our city engineer to talk a little bit more about how the scope was developed and the proportionality of the additional funds. But I will point out that the spirit of the development of the TIF district was revitalization. And it's not merely just infrastructure associated with the Red Rock Creek Trail, which it did acknowledge in the ballot measure, but as you can see, has been part of our incorporated into the development of the plans. But it was also looking at what the community wanted as future projects in these different districts, which is why we have that's why we have our Town Center Advisory Committee, as well as our directors and our chair, to help guide us as to what types of projects we want to see within these areas. And in some instances, it will be the Red Rock Creek Trail. In some instances, it's the infrastructure that's there. And it's a matter of determining what it is the community wants. There's a significant amount of community engagement that is done in this, in which we will speak to our community members as to what they want to see as projects and areas that focuses on the needs for the community. Part of it was the Parks Project. That is one of the key elements that our community has requested in this area, and which is why we're moving forward with those projects. So it is difficult because, as you all have mentioned, there is restraints on the kind of funding that we have available to us, and so it's a matter of figuring out what the balance of priorities are. Part of the TIF district funds have gone to, absorbing some of the costs associated with the infrastructure, and some of it's going to go towards other revitalization projects that we feel are consistent with the spirit of what the community and the plans have identified. So,
No,
did I
and
miss
I
anything with
get that, and I think that's a fair answer. And I think following on to kind of the response I got with some of the apportionment in SDC charges, it seems, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems as though you've got the revenue coming in, and as a team, you guys are working with your community on how best to optimize it for kind of the community's wants and needs, as opposed to looking at that fund as a necessary enabler of building that infrastructure to allow development. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying, because I don't see your income being able to support the investment in Red Rock Creek that's necessary to build this density of growth in Tiger Triangle. You have the debt limit to take on, but I don't see the income. And so it concerns me a little bit when and again, this is not you, when I hear general, well, we're going to kind of grab the money from where we can, because when I look historically, it's the water fund ratepayers that are picking up the tab on a lot of this stuff. And it may be appropriate. It may fully be appropriate. But I don't think I've yet been shown the engineering calculations, which I believe are supposed to exist, which demonstrate that capacity allocation. And so that's kind of my comment on it. I wanted to, and it wasn't, because I know you guys are doing what you can, but what I read from that is you've got this budget and you're prioritizing, hey, we can contribute this much to Red Rock this year because this is how we're balancing the budget, as opposed to here's an allocated, this is what it costs and this is what everybody agreed to pay for. That's, I guess, my comment on that. And I do have tabled for later, I think this is something, this scope of the Tiger Triangle and financing of CIP is something that the Finance Committee probably needs to take up to look at whether the intent of the ballot measure is certainly being followed from the outside looking in. If I read this, I kind of was led to believe that it was all going to pay for itself, and it's definitely not that case on the capital side. So I do think that's worth having discussion on, maybe not at this, but in the Finance Committee. So that would be a motion I'd like to introduce later if possible.
Okay. Councilor Schlack.
Thank you. Regarding the Tiger Triangle Parks project, just recognizing that the council, sitting as the TCDA board, made a big investment in that site, I just wanted to understand at a high level what the budgetary impacts of that, that purchase will be on future TIF district budgets, recognizing that we had to take on a loan for a portion of it. It's going to those loan payments will constrain some of our expenditures and require reductions in expenditures on some other programs. So I would just like to understand, in general, what that will look like for future meetings of the Budget Committee.
Councilor Schlack. So short term, there will be an impact on our ability to do some projects, but in the long term, as our TIF builds up, we'll be able to make additional borrowings. I should mention that the purchase of that site did include area that is going to be used for the Red Rock Creek stabilization project. So in a sense, that purchase also contributed to that project between $1 million and $1.5 million, depending on how you value the land and in the cost savings. So there was a contribution in TIF in addition to what is in proposed in the budget this year. But to get back to your question, Councilor Shack, yes, there is a short-term impact that'll reduce our ability to other projects, but again, as our TIF builds up, we had to make an investment sometime.
Yeah, and I still think it was the right investment for the TCDA board to make. So I just wanted to understand, at the time we had talked about some of the trade-offs that purchase would have on that TIF district budget. So I just wanted at a high level to better understand that. So thank you for your response.
Any further discussion or question on TCDA budget? Thank you so much. So, committee member, we're about 55 minutes ahead of schedule. Would anybody want a brief recess before we go to final discussion and voting?
Yes.
Okay, so I will propose we come back around 8:20. So we're in recess until 8:20. Thank you. All right, it's 8:21, so will everybody please take a seat? I would like to resume the Budget Committee meeting. Thank you, Councilor Slack. All right, so we have finished all the presentations, and now for the finale, closing discussion and voting. So let's start by opening a discussion with a continuation of the May 11 meeting and discussion of the material presented tonight. After discussion, there are 3 amendments to vote on that pertaining to library funding. So before I start talking about amendments, are there any topic of discussion or any comments or questions? Anybody want to? Aaron, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring, on here, it does mention that of the 3 proposed amendments, only 1 can be selected. I wanted to ask a question about that because one of them is materially different than the other 2. So I don't see a reason why that one would preclude the others from being able to be voted for.
Councilor Schlack.
So all 3 of them at some level are seeking to redirect some level of funding to the library. So if we were to take all 3 of them together, that would be a lot of duplicative actions right there.
But the amendment number 1 doesn't cover the same amount as amendments number 2 and 3. So voting for amendment number 1 and it passing, meaning that amendments 2 and 3 cannot be voted on, does not make sense procedurally.
I trust the chair to guide us through the conversation appropriately.
Yeah, so I was planning to take a temperature check, so I'm not going to entertain any motion until I'm sure that there are 8 people in support of any of the 3 amendments. So, yeah, so hopefully that will ease your concern. I will make sure that all 3 amendments will get considered. All right, Council President Wolf.
So I just wanted to make a comment. Jeff, I appreciate your questions and inquiries regarding the purchase of the land, with the water fund dollars. And the only thing I just would like to share, because my sense was a little bit of how it was accounted for and whether I agree. And it was acknowledged in I believe it was Moss Adams still at that time, and they had not transitioned to their new firm in the fiscal year 24 audit that purchase was completed. It's in the notes. So I encourage you, if it's at a council meeting or an appropriate step, to consider changing that. But I did want to acknowledge that our auditors were aware of that and did not make any accounting corrections or recommended modifications for how that was accounted for. So I just wanted to share that comment just for clarification. So thank you.
Let me get back to you. Derek, you have comments or question?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, that we had an issue with the microphone at the beginning, so I have been present for the meeting since the very beginning and wanted to make it known for the record that I am here for voting.
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to follow up or?
I do, and I'm not quite sure the right way to do it. I wanted to follow up mainly because I had put forth, I was not present here, sorry for my communication issues, but I had put forth kind of a rough and tumble amendment just talking about the FTE equivalent switching. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to maybe revise and make some modifications to that.
Not yet.
I do have a proposal to kind of modify my motion with, and I did hand that out. And it involves a question, first of all, on the availability of the CET fund in the use of supporting
Jeff, can we table that until we get to it?
Sure,
So I want to get through the 3 amendments on the
I'm trying to make sure I
table.
can introduce it. I don't know when the right time is, but I do.
Yeah, I
want to.
will let you know. So Councilor Schlag, you raise your, no, nothing? Okay, all right, so, thank you. So that's, yeah, Bill, please go ahead.
Okay, it's more of just a comment. When I
kind of dug into this budget. I mean, it's a huge budget. But the one area that I've really dug into is the general fund. And I know that this has been kind of an overtone in this whole discussion, but just to bring this up, this year doesn't seem like a crisis budget. We have sufficient, we have a sufficient reserve in the general fund, but when you really dig into it, there is no good news in this budget for the general fund. Over the next 3 to 5 years, that surplus is going to be drawn down, and we will reach a point sooner or later where our expenditures are going to exceed the revenues coming in. And so unless there is some big change on that revenue side, we are going to come back in the next few years and begin looking at cutting. Given that 70%, 65, 70% of the general fund is funding people, jobs, it's going to mean cutting jobs. So my orientation, just want to state this out there, my orientation as I come into this is looking at, one, trying to maintain the jobs that we have, but also looking at it and saying, if we have open positions, we should really be thinking about cutting those open positions. We want to put that day of reckoning off as far as possible. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments on that. All right, so before I want to discuss the 3 community member amendment in front of us, I would just like to ask Budget Director Kane to give us a presentation on the technical amendment and see if we have any question on that. So Eric?
Thank you, Chair. All right, so I know this slide right here is a little difficult to read from a screen. So if you have the printout, I don't know if that's any easier to read. Okay. All right. Is there a possibility to zoom in a little bit closer? All right, if not, I will do a narrative format on what is included, and I apologize, we will make sure to have a printout that is just on this screen next time. So the first technical adjustment is is $100,000 in that first line right there. So that is a transfer of funds from the Transient Lodging Tax Fund for $100,000 to fund TLT eligible grants that were already approved by the Grants Subcommittee. So on the expense side, you will see that the budget has already been budgeted, but there weren't revenues to match those expenditures from the TLT fund. So that is just a transfer of resources. The next one is $48,000 transfer from the Transportation Network Company Fund to pay for a portion of the Safe Routes to School coordinator position that is funded by the Metro Grant. Similar to the previous one, the position is already funded, but the revenue source to transfer the funds from the TNC funds was not incorporated into the budget. And so that is correcting that. The third one for $241,000. So this is a missing transfer from the Water Fund for a capital project 96070 for the ASR expansion feasibility project. So again, this is a project that's already been budgeted, but there needs to be a transfer of resources to help to actually fund the project. For the next one, there's a $91,383 adjustment, and this is a misallocation of positions within IT that was allocated to the water fund. And so this is a correction of that allocation, and it puts those salaries back into IT's budget. And then lastly, there was a duplicate expense of $79,355 that need to be eliminated, and that's due to a clerical error, and that's within the Park and Recreation Fund. And so just to summarize, at a high level, the technical adjustments are not used to make new funding requests. These are clerical adjustments or corrections of clerical errors during the budget process. And so the most common ones are typically for transfers missing one side of the entry or misallocations. And I am happy to answer any questions on the technical adjustments.
Any questions on technical amendments? I assume nobody have quite a problem with incorporating technical. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just more of a question, because I'm kind of new to this. Does that mean these will be just rolled into the final budget that we would be voting on, or is this a separate adjustment that we would be voting on to amend that budget?
So from a point of order standpoint, these would get, when you go through the voting process for approving the budget, you would state approved budget with technical adjustments.
All right, so so anybody who does not support the technical amendment, raise your hand. Seeing none, so I will just mark off as when we make a motion, there will be no problem with the technical amendment. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to the three committee member amendments, and I will go them in order. So again, I will get a temperature check. I will make sure that all three amendments will be presented by the people by the person who presented, and then I will get a temperature check afterwards, and then before we will do a voting. So the first one we'll consider is Councilor Schlack's amendment. For Amendment 1, it will fund balance transfer and gap funding. So that's the title. Councilor Schlack has proposed an amendment to appropriate $36,000 of an unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Bond to hopefully restore the funding for library staffing and appropriate the remaining $2,714,000 to the Parks Utility Fund to address the projected operation shortfall. Councilor Schlack, would you like to make a presentation?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Budget Committee. Tonight, I'm proposing an amendment to address our most immediate service gaps and ensure no permanent employees are impacted by this year's budget. First, I propose appropriating $36,000 of unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Bond to restore funding for library staffing associated with the Adult Services Librarian and Youth Services Librarian. This is equivalent to 0.4 FTE for fiscal year 2027. This would stop reductions to teen and adult programs and support critical one-on-one job help. It would ensure our reference desks stay open and mitigate against closures of the library's second floor due to lack of staffing. I've listened to our community's concerns and propose that funding for these permanent permanent positions be restored for fiscal year 2027. Second, I propose appropriating $2,714,000 of unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Bond to the Parks Utility Fund to support fiscal year 2027 operations and partially address the projected operating shortfall identified for that fund. We are forecasting a $1.1 million deficit in the Parks Utility Fund for fiscal year 2027, which, if left unaddressed, would cut recreation programming, reduce basic parks maintenance, and eliminate trail maintenance outside of parks. I believe the Tigard community would consider these impacts to be unacceptable. It is important to acknowledge up front that this would be one-time bridge funding. It would buy us time to be strategic, not reactive. The City Council needs to define across departments what core service levels should be, as well as what long-term funding mechanisms should be used to maintain those service levels. At my request, Council has already started this work for Parks and Recreation and will be starting this work for the library later this summer. Until that work concludes, I believe this amendment is a sensible way to address the fiscal impacts on the library and Parks and Recreation for fiscal year 2027. It provides a path forward that honors our community's priorities without dismantling the rest of our city operations. To understand why this amendment is necessary, though, we need to be frank about the reality of our fiscal situation, which Bill had alluded to mentioned earlier. The biggest success of this budget, in my opinion, is that despite starting with a $6 million general fund shortfall back in January 2026, no employees in permanent positions will be laid off. My amendment keeps it that way. We need to be clear about the trade-offs of the proposals from other committee members tonight. We have cut our departments to the bone over the years. There is no more overhead left to trim. There are only paychecks. If this committee pursues further cuts to other departmental budgets, it will be going out of its way to lay off permanent city employees. Additionally, if I may say, pursuing cuts or unnecessary cuts, I should say, to police staffing in the middle of active union bargaining is not helpful to the city and complicates an already sensitive process. Increasing funding for one department by eliminating it for another is not an abstract exercise. It means issuing pink slips to employees who provide value to the Tigard community. We don't have to do that this year. My amendment shores up Parks and Recreation, restores the permanent positions at the library, and most importantly, prevents layoffs. I urge the Budget Committee to face these trade-offs, pass my amendment, and approve the fiscal year 2027 budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schlack. So now I would like to do a temperature check. I have a list of committee member on my spreadsheet already printed out. So when I call your name, please let me know if you support Councillor Schlack's amendment, you support it with amendment of your own, and you can describe what you would like to amend, or you oppose. You do not have to give any explanation of your decision, but if you would like to, please keep it brief so we can keep the discussion going. So I would like to start with Councillor Anderson. Councillor Anderson, do you support the amendment or support with amendment, or do you oppose it?
I support amendment number 1.
Okay.
I'd like to just add, concerning the social services coordinator position at the library, I would propose that the position be eliminated from the library. This is a part of a larger conversation that council will have about core services in the future, and of course limited duration positions as well. To the Budget Committee members that are not counselors, you guys are doing a great job, but understand that we as council members get feedback from the community year-round, not just at the budget season. Both good and bad feedback, of course, but mostly in the form of complaints. So I have received multiple complaints from residents that say they have felt uncomfortable and even unsafe at the library because of the homeless guests. These are families with young kids as well as some older residents, to the extent that several have told me that they will no longer go to the Tigard Library. So I do appreciate the comments from the committee and the public that we must take care of our most vulnerable population. Let me assure you that Tigard has taken steps to provide these services. Ever since the Homeless Task Force of 8 years ago, Tigard has supported, incubated, and funded through grants a robust network of nonprofit providers for this reason. We currently have more services for low income and homeless in 3 square miles than anyone in Washington County and arguably anybody in the state. And let me just add as well that I believe Director Bernard is an excellent administrator and will find a new way forward with these cuts.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I will now ask Councillor Shaw, do you support Amendment 1, support them with your own amendment, or do you oppose?
Thank you, Mayor. I do support Amendment 1, and it's my understanding that with WCCLS, funding the library adult and the team position is part of the agreement we have with them, but inherent in the name with the limited duration position, I do not think we should be funding the social services. And if we were to fund it, then I'd like to reconsider the IT position for limited duration, since that's a precedent. And I agree with the comments made by Councillor Anderson as well as Schlack. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw, and I assume Councillor Schlack support his own amendment. So, all right, so I'll go to Council President Wolf. Do you support with amendment, or do you oppose?
Thank you, Mayor, and I support with an amendment. So again, to try to be efficient, thank you, Councillor Anderson, for your comments, and as well, Councillor Schlack and Councillor Shaw. My request is that we actually retain $500,000 in our reserve, lessening the transfer that Councillor Schlack has proposed to the Park Utility Fund. I do agree that that is necessary and will help us kind of create that path to structuring appropriate park fees. And the reason that I would like that fund to retain is, I mean, the obvious short answer is always fiscal reserve, strong reserves is great for our bond rating. But a couple things that are close to my heart right now is we are just launching into our city manager search process. I would like to have some funds there as we hire a new leader with a vision and an energy towards what's next for Tigard. And also, our strategic plan, which started its process in 2019, expired in 2025. So I just want a reserve set aside for the things we have yet to identify. And other than that, and I want to go back to Councilor Shaw recommending an IGA for the library limited duration social services position. I mean, I would volunteer to work on that, whether it's the homeless committee, CCE, let's dig in. The chief looked at opportunities for IGAs. Let's think about that in a different way to provide some support for Tigard. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Wolf. And next round, we'll go back to your amendment, to the amendment. But right now, let's stick with Councilor Schlack's amendment, which is amendment number 1. And I'll go down my list to Councilor Robbins. Do you support amendment 1, or do you support with your own amendment, or do you oppose?
I support, I have a different amendment as well. I think it's a great use of moving the money around. I would propose that we move over the additional $129,202 to fund this social services coordinator for 1 additional year. This is a limited duration position, but this is a very, very difficult year, and also we've lost a lot of funding. Perhaps after the midterms, we could get a little more funding from the federal government, or at the very least, it will give us a year to better plan for eliminating this position and how we will fund that. So I would propose moving that money a little bit differently, although I also am fine with more discussion of Council President Wolf's.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll move on to Councilor Guzzusi. Do you support amendment 1, or do you support with amendment, or do you oppose?
Thank you, Mayor. When I was a medical student and resident, my family relied heavily on free community resources for education and development of our children. My lived experience plus acknowledgement of Oregon's current deficits in reading and academic success do make me concerned about the proposed budget that places this disproportionate share of reductions in the Tigard Public Library. I do feel it's a core community service that advances our literacy, lifelong learning, and equitable access to information. It's one of our most visible and widely used public assets in our city and serves residents of all ages and backgrounds. This amendment does not provide sufficient funding for our library. If the concern is houseless individuals, not providing information and social services will just make things worse. So I don't support this amendment as written.
You do not support. Okay. I will go down to Derek. Derek, do you support amendment 1, or do you support it with your own amendment, or do you oppose it?
I support the amendment with reiterating what Councilors Anderson, Schlack, and Shaw, well, specifically Anderson and Shaw, had mentioned about eliminating the social services coordinator position. I could certainly see holding back $500,000 for the additional reserves. But yeah, it's my contention that we should be looking at supporting those at-risk populations using an established support system that we have in place with the various NGOs that do business within our city limits at this time. So directionally, I support it with those caveats.
Thank you. So Kelly, do you support amendment 1 as it is, or do you support with amendments, or do you oppose it?
Thank you. So I support this amendment, but I support it with Councilor Robbins' suggestions, because I do think that if we can at least get that year in place to try to give council time to work on the direction that they want to go, or maybe even explore other opportunities for IGAs to help fill this role. I don't think we're going to see a decrease in people going to the library for social services. I think that's just going to keep going forward. And to me, it's a question of, are you going to have somebody there to help them, or are you not going to have somebody there to help them? And I would rather have somebody there.
Okay, thank you. We'll go over the Councilor President Wolf and Councilor Robbins' amendment at the next round. So, Yusuf, do you support amendment 1 with amendment 1 with amendment, or oppose?
Thank you, Mayor. I oppose Amendment 1.
Okay.
I don't think that we've seen any analysis saying permanent job loss for this $165,000, or even what it would take just for the social service counselor. So for me, I'm a no on this as is.
Okay, thank you. Bill, how about you? Support with amendment or oppose?
As a temperature check, I'm generally supportive. I have a fairly serious concern about the use of one-time funds for operations. And I know that we can't dictate how a department spends those funds. I guess I would just make the statement that it would be great if we did that they would try to put those into one-time expenses, not ongoing operations.
Thank you. Jeff, do you support Amendment 1? Support with amendment or oppose?
I support the second half. Thank you, Mayor. I think that the money that we allocated for the parks bond should stay with the park system. I think that's what people voted for. But I don't agree with taking some of that and using it to support the library staff. I think we can get the library staff the $165,000. I have my own proposal for where that can come from without depleting our park system stability. I don't know if it's appropriate to offer that amendment now, but if I could, I would put all the money of number 2 in the parks, and I would amend 1 to fund all the cut library positions. And I would look to obtain that money from the construction excise tax funding long-range planning, freeing up long-range planning dollars to then feed into the library.
I have to be honest, I'm confused. Can you
Okay,
keep
no,
it
that's
simpler?
Yeah.
So you oppose it because,
As written, I do not support.
You
the-
oppose it,
I'll
okay.
be opposed at
Okay,
this
thank
point
you.
in time.
all right, Ethan, support with amendment or oppose?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, first of all, regardless of the outcome of tonight's voting, I just want to thank all the community members for coming and voicing their comments throughout this entire process, and to what Councilor Schlack said about, starting a process with the city council to look at library priorities, and what Councilor Anderson expanded upon about hearing input, throughout the year, not just at the budget committee. I would invite or hope that all of you come back during those city council sessions to continue, advocacy in that kind of policy-facing process. But to the question at hand for tonight, I think, or at least for now, I think I support the amendment, Councilor Schlack's amendment. I'm curious to hear a little more discussion, though, and just so that I know what we're addressing here, is it the two, so on this proposed budget, it's the 2.2s, right? Okay, so that's what this would restore funding for, right? Just like to take this from a monetary
One-time funding.
to like a human impact.
Yeah, if I may clarify, my priority is to make sure no permanent positions are impacted by this year's budget. So that's why my amendment, as written, is focused on that. And Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead.
make one clarification regarding whether a reduction in police funding would result in a loss of FTEs. I'd refer the committee to the administrative analysis on Amendment 2, which states police staff indicated that reduction of additional police FTE directly affects core services, and continues to elaborate on that point. So that was part of the staff analysis that was
Get a point
provided.
of order. We're not discussing that amendment at this point.
Yep, I agree. So let's not talk about Amendment 2 for now. So, all right, so Ethan, you support, but we will consider the other two amendments.
Yeah, I'm almost there. So just to clarify, so the 2.2 positions, there are already people in those spots right
Yeah,
now, right? And then the two following ones that are vacant, obviously are vacant, and then the limited duration program coordinator, there is somebody currently in that position, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but it was limited duration from the beginning, so. Again,
Councilor
I
Robin
think I
proposed to amend that, so we
Okay.
can talk about that. So you generally support it, but
Generally support, but very interested in.
the amendment, okay,
That
sounds
item as
good.
well,
All right.
thanks.
So Aaron, support amendment, oppose?
As a temperature check, I will support it with Councilor Robbins' amendment.
Okay.
With one additional amendment of my own to make it a permanent position.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I support Councilor Schlack's amendment as it is. So we have at least a vote to at least consider Council President Wolf's amendment to the amendment. Oh boy, it's going to be confusing when I when somebody make a motion. So let me just go down order then. Councilor Anderson, do you support Council President Wolf's to take 0.5 million of that back to general fund instead of putting everything else into the parks fund?
I would, well, it's a good thought, but I would say keep it with the parks.
Okay, so no. Councilor Shaw, would you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. I do think that's creative, and it does set the stage well for a potential new city manager, as well as the strategic plan that I will remind people is the first we've ever had in the city for economic development. So I would support Council President.
Councilor Schlack, do you
Amendment.
oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Councilor Schlack, do you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
Yes, I support it, and I'd like to just make a comment as to why. My intent with this amendment is to immediately triage the parks budget and then provide, have sufficient revenue left over to provide a glide path for any long-term funding change or revenue changes that the City Council is currently considering. So I think that would still leave plenty of funding to have some wiggle room to that objective. So I am open to it, yes. Yes, yes, to clarify with Councilor Anderson. So we may, the council expressed interest in reviewing the methodology for setting PARF and looking at inflation adjustment and so on. Obviously, that could result in a sort of an immediate increase. And so if the council wanted to entertain, for instance, sort of a glide path where we stagger that in at a more slow rate over a couple of years, I believe this would provide, these one-time funds could provide some gap funding until it gets up to sort of whirs into full gear, if you will.
Mayor, I'd change my support to yes on that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Robbins, do you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
I do, with the caveat that I would also like, I don't know if we would pull another 129,000 or use part of the 500 for the 129,000 for the social services. But I am interested in it, yes.
Okay. So I won't ask Councilor Guzzi because he opposed the original amendment. Derek, do you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
I support it.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, do you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
I support it.
Thank you. And Bill, do you support Council President Wolf's amendment?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, please.
The money that, Eric, the money that came in, this 2.5 million, whatever it is, that is from, where did that money actually come from? Because I'm speaking to Councilor Schlack's position that, you know, this was money that the public intended to go to the park fund, it should still go to the park fund. In that case, I see 500,000, 36,000 for a one-year position. That's a relatively small amount. 500,000 is quite large. But I really want to know, is this money that the public intended to go to the parks, or is this something else?
So there's a two-part to that answer there. So the origination of this money is from the parks bond that the voters approved approximately 20 years ago, since the debt service on that has been completed now. Over the life of the bond, there were excess tax, higher than expected tax collection. There's also been interest earnings on the fund balance over a 20-year period, which compounds over time. And so there's been an accumulated fund balance here. The entire principal amount that the bond authorized has been fully spent. So there is no more parks bond that's required to be spent on like park assets, because that was the intent of the original parks bond. And so this is just residual money that is unrestricted and can be transferred to the general fund.
In that case, Mayor, I support the transfer to the general fund.
Thank you. Ethan, do you support transferring 500,000 to general fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Aaron?
Yes.
All right, me too, yes. So, all right, so let's move on to Councilor Robbins' proposal of transferring the Parks Fund to fund the social services position for another year. Councilor Anderson, do you support or oppose?
I oppose.
Thank you. Councilor Shah, support or oppose?
Oppose with the idea, as Council President Wolf had mentioned, that we investigate in IGA.
Thank you. Councilor Schlack, oppose or support?
Oppose in the consideration that we're seeking to maintain permanent positions, but I support Council President Wolf's suggestion of investigating further at IGA or some sort of agreement to provide similar services at the library in the future.
Thank you. Councilor Wolf, Council President Wolf, support or oppose?
I oppose and agree with statements made, so thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Councilor Robbins supported that because that's her proposal. Derek, do you support or oppose?
Oppose?
Thank you. Kelly, I think you'll support, right? Okay. Bill, do you support or oppose the funding for the social services?
I oppose.
Thank you. Ethan, oppose or support?
Support.
Support. Aaron, support or oppose?
Support.
Support. So far we only have 4 votes for support, so that's, we do not, so that amendment, Councilor Robbins' amendment does not have a vote, so that will not go forward. But I will consider, Aaron, your proposal to make that position permanent. I don't know how that will work. I don't think that will work, right?
I might request on that specific question a consultation with our HR director, maybe a short recess to discuss.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so let's have 5-minute recess to consider that question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll be back on 9:05, sorry. Are we all ready now? All the board members? I think all the committee members are here, right? Okay, so, Bill. All right, so thank you for your patience. So the question before us is, what considering Aaron's proposal making the social services coordinator position permanent? And I wasn't sure if the budget committee can do that for next several years budget, but please, HR Director Gomez, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, my name is Laura Gomez. I'm the HR Director for the City of Tigard. Actually, that would be an operational decision. It would have a larger impact and consideration that we do need to make in light of positions that are permanent and are already on the record for potential elimination or reduction.
So it's not.
Thank you. I
It is not.
withdraw the amendment.
Okay, so, all right, so now just to keep everybody in check that we have enough vote for the Schlack/Wolf amendment, so if anybody want to make a motion later on. But as promised, I will go on to the next two amendments to see and get a temperature check. So for Amendment 2, it's titled Relocation of Police Funding to Library Operation. And Aaron McCoo proposed the amendment to reduce police appropriation by $165,202 and transfer the appropriation to the library to retain the 0.4 FTE and continue funding of the 1.0 limited jury position. Aaron, would you like to make a presentation?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
At this time, I do wish that I had written it down, but I will go from the heart. Let's just do that. So my proposed amendment would reallocate $165,202 from the police department budget to the library fund in order to retain 1.4 FTE. That includes the 2.2 FTEs for the adult and teen librarians, as well as the social services. Now, I did want to make a couple of statements that have been coming up. First, I wanted to address the administrative analysis that says that this is going to directly affect core levels and eliminate sworn officer positions. Also, this was brought up by Councilor Schlack. It would not. There is a $600,000 unfilled vacancy budget within the police department. So $165,000 out of that would still leave them with $435,000 in vacancies. This would not impact public safety. It would not impact the number of police officers that are on the street. In fact, this would, I argue, increase public safety, because we have been hearing that by eliminating these positions, we are eliminating people at the library who are able to deal with behavior escalations that are happening. When this happens and those people aren't there, what has to happen? They have to call the police. When they call the police come and are unable to react to other calls. This is not making the public safer by taking money away from the library. This is making the community less safe. I understand what Councilor Anderson is saying, that people are saying that they feel unsafe at the library. There is a unhoused population who needs to use the library. That is the fact of the matter. That is, I'm going to be honest, part of what the library does. The fact that there are unhoused people there is not going to go away by getting rid of these positions. In fact, it's going to be made less safe by taking away these positions. You're taking away people who have the skills to deal with situations that arise and making it less safe. You're not going to be making those families feel safer when they go in there. Taking away these positions doesn't make unhoused people not go there. There was a question about a precedent being made by paying for a limited duration position. That doesn't have to be the case. I am not making a blanket statement that every limited duration position needs to be filled permanently. I am saying that this limited duration position needs to be filled because this fills a very real need within our community. Saying that if we do this one, we have to do all the others, that's a slippery slope argument, and it doesn't really hold water. I'm just going to stop there with that one. This is an established support system that we have within our community. We've talked about having other established support systems. Having other established support systems doesn't mean that we undercut the ones that we have that are working for us now. In short, we can make our community safer. We can make our community better for the residents that we are supposed to be taking care of. We can fulfill the will of the people that are voting. They voted for the library to be supported, and now we're taking money away from them. We can make sure that that doesn't happen, and we can do that without impacting anybody's job. We take a little bit of money from jobs that aren't even filled right now, and we can put it towards some place that we need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, so I will do the same temperature check as before. I'll go down my list, and you can tell me you see support. Support with amendment, you oppose. You do not have to make any comment when you answer that question. So I will start with Councilor Anderson again.
Oppose.
Councilor Shaw.
Opposed.
Councilor Schlack.
Opposed.
Council President Wolf.
Opposed.
Councilor Robbins.
I think Aaron McCool makes an interesting argument. I fully support our police department. I don't think we've gotten a lot of public comment, and I don't think that the police department is overstaffed or over-equipped, like some people have said. But it is interesting to consider temporarily taking some money from unfilled positions if we could hear more from the police chief about what that would mean, what the timeline would be for filling those positions, and would we really be not hiring someone that we could hire this year? So I am interested enough to hear a discussion.
So is that oppose or support?
Support for discussion.
Support discussion. Okay. Councilor Guzzi.
So although I too support the library central role in achieving the city's strategic goal, it's hard to have that reduction in our police force. But if we can have that discussion and hear the chief out, and if that is something that is possible, I would like to do that.
Okay. Derek, do you support, oppose, or support with amendment?
Oppose.
Kelly?
I honestly don't know which way to go on this one. I'm sorry.
Okay, I can
wish-
get back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yusuf?
I support.
Bill?
I oppose.
Jeff?
I do not support taking the resources from the police, but I did want to kind of scratch at, I do support the concept of the support staff being full-time, but I don't know that the Budget Committee has any authority to do anything other than give the library the funds to make that opportunity available to them.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
as I understand
operation.
it?
Yeah.
So I do not support
Okay.
getting the 165 this way.
Okay. Ethan?
Well, I appreciate a lot of community member McCool's sentiments, and I just want to reiterate the invitation for the public commenters to return to city council meetings to take a good hard look at the longer-term priorities. I think Councilor Schlack's amendment is overall more appropriate, and so I affirm my support for that amendment and therefore oppose this one.
Okay, so we have 8 opposed, so we're now moving forward with Aaron's amendment. All right, so let's move on to amendment number 3. It's titled Relocation of Proposed Library Reduction to Community Development Budget Committee. So Budget Committee member Jeff proposed amendment to reduce community development appropriation by $165,202 and transfer the appropriation to library to retain the 0.4 FTE and continue funding of the 1.0 limited duration position. Jeff, would you like to make a presentation?
Yeah, and maybe a little point of clarification, and I apologize because this is my first time and I might not have been clear. When I was making this proposal, it was not ever intended to be a one-to-one split only looking at the general fund, okay? My concept was to look at how the general fund expenditures are going through these different organizations and look if those tasks had other funds which were available to serve those same purposes. And I don't think that was clear enough to get that response. And so I would frankly like to modify my amendment out of the gates if that's possible, because since since no options were provided to me, I went hunting for my own, and I guess.
Are
Yeah.
you still proposing
So
cutting?
I would propose a modification of this to specify where those funds might come from.
From department or from positions?
No.
From programs.
Where to fund the 100, specifically, I would like to modify the amendment to propose the source of those funds and the fund trail that would allow the position to stay as a part-time.
Those are operational. Our budget committee cannot make that decision.
Exactly, but we do have, a question maybe of our authority level, we do have the ability to oversee and direct fund expenditures from the CET fund. And so it would be appropriate to ask if those funds could be allocated to long-range plannings and then free up general fund money to support the library staff. That's where my amendment was. Maybe not that level of specificity, but I was hoping to hear back from planning on what options might be available, and that was the one.
So
I
that
don't know
will
how that
require
fits in.
further
I apologize.
analysis from staff. And as I mentioned, if we need any more further analysis, we need 8 members to agree to a meeting on June 1st to have. So I personally can understand it because, to be honest, what you just said, I don't think I can digest that quickly. So
No, I understand.
So
this is
would you like us to do the temperature check on Amendment 3 as presented, or you can withdraw it? I'm fine.
You know, as presented, I would like a temperature check.
Okay.
I guess we might as well go through it because I think it can be amended to work, but I think it's a question of how we're going to allocate
Okay,
these
so I will
lower-
conduct a temperature check. Do you want to say anything more about it?
Yeah, I would, although I think getting into the mechanics might confuse people, but I will say that we're at a point, this is not a pleasant economic or social time we're going through. And
Nope.
I think we can all agree to that. And I think we can all agree that we're facing some pretty significant headwinds. And so when I look at how we support our whole community, and this is what I've been trying to do, I've been trying to sort of balance things and look at like, well, which funds can pay for services and which ones do we choose to make those payments from? And when I look at some of our long-range planning efforts, it seems to me as though we're choosing to support those exclusively out of the general fund when we could support those up to 35% from the construction excise tax. That's what Metro does. That's what multiple other cities do. Dedicate some amount of funds into that. And I don't know what the scope of that would be, and I can only do my paper calculations, but when I do those maths, it comes up to an amount that just about equals the FTE cuts out of the library. And I don't know the mechanics of any of this, but I would think that that's compelling enough to dig into financially and make sure that it pencils out. And that way, we're not hitting the police. That way, we're not pulling from the general fund. We are hitting a fund that has a targeted use for supporting affordable housing, but our long-range planning is doing that by building in this affordable housing into these strategies for River Terrace 2.0. And I would argue that's a very appropriate use of that fund, and that would free up those funds from the general fund. That's my circular argument around this. I think the minute we stop supporting the weakest in our community, we just start collapsing, and you're going to end up with. I've lived in Asia. I've lived in large cities. I've lived in small cities. You lose a sense of community when you fragment, and I think that, to me, the library is the one place in our community where everybody goes, except maybe McDonald's, right? Everybody goes to the library, and I think that needs to stay. And people are going to go there. They're going to go there because it's a bathroom, because it's a warm place inside. So they're going to be there. Somebody's going to have to help them. And I'll go off a little bit. I was walking my dog last week, and I saw a King City cop blocking the street. And I was blowing up, hey, welcome into the hood. What are you doing? And he was there because we had a gas leak, and the fire trucks were there, and they were blocking off the street. Our police were doing something else. We had to call King City to help. So I'm not in favor of defunding something that we know we need when we've got a fund which arguably we might spend $400,000 of it. If we find a couple of people to buy houses, it's not going to slow that process down, and the fund is sitting there. And I would argue we use that for long-range planning. So that is not my original proposal, but that's my talk around how we can look at these funds differently to free up money which can be allocated to things that we care about.
Thank you. All right, so I'll do a temperature check on the Jeff amendment. Councilor Anderson, support with the amendment or oppose?
I'm opposed to using the CET for that, so.
Okay, Councilor Shaw,
I'm also opposed to using CTE for that.
Councilor Schlack,
I'm opposed, but I encourage Jeff to explore his ideas with the finance team further on a range of issues and look at whether they're viable for the fiscal year 28 budget. I'm opposed for tonight.
all right. Councilor President Wolf,
I mean, Jeff, I'll say I'm intrigued, right? And similar to Counselor Schlack. And then what I wondered is moving forward with a budget to move forward to council. So we still complete tonight, but continue that conversation of construction excise tax because the budget has to be adopted by council. So this is part one of two parts. So I'm intrigued by that and curious to learn more and whether that's a conversation that council would consider before or during the adoption process. So thank you. So I guess I oppose for tonight,
Oppose, okay.
sorry. But I'm intrigued,
Yes.
so thank you, Jeff.
Councilor Robbins,
So I'll just start by saying I don't know what construction excise tax is, so this is a big learning curve here. I just quickly asked Finance Director Kang, and he said that we already have one long-range planner that is paid for by CET dollars. So I'm going to say I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to the amendment that just pulls money straight from community development, but I think it's an interesting idea, and if there are other ways that we can move funds around, I'm open to that, but not this right now because I don't think we know that we can do that.
thank you. Councilor Gudusi,
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be honest, I don't completely understand the amendment to the amendment that you just proposed this evening. I would support what was there enough to explore it further, though.
Derek,
It sounds like the proposal is not complete, so I oppose in its current form.
all right. Kelly,
I oppose it in its current form as well.
Yusuf,
A lot of discussion about vulnerable people, but I think the votes tell the score and the story. If this was a viable way to fund the library, I would be for it.
Bill,
Oppose.
and Jeff, I assume you support. Ethan,
Oppose.
Aaron,
Oppose.
all right. So we don't have enough vote to support it. So Jeff amendment is dead. And then, but Jeff, you did provide us printout of three amendments. And again, I will just give you, I will be happy to let you present, but I'll just give you the caveat again. If it's complicated, we will have to schedule a meeting because I'm not comfortable considering on the fly. So are you okay? Yeah, please present them. Yeah, at least I'm like Council President Wolf, I'm intrigued.
Okay,
But I
so-
will need time to learn more, so maybe next year. So
Yeah,
please.
No, and thank you. And I realize this is late, and
Yeah.
we absolutely have the obligation to get a budget.
Yeah.
In general, when I looked at this, I was really seeking to understand a lot. I know we focused a lot on the one position at the library, and I don't want to lose sight of that. But what I'm going to go now is generally an approach from the outsider looking in, how are we growing, developing, spending money? And when I start looking at the water fund, for example, I start to get concerned. In 2017 or 2018, we had taken on this huge debt from the Lake Oswego water supply, and we switched from capitalizing it to expensing it. And at that point in time, the water fund picked up the whole tab. According to what is allowable, 30% of that should have been picked up by system development charges, because 30% of the water system was for new growth. It's not required to be, and the FCS consultants were very clear to point that out. The council does not need to assess SDC rates. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or not, but we chose not to. So essentially, for the last 8 or 10 years, we've spent out of ratepayers' pockets about $20 million that should have been covered by SDCs for new capacity. And if we look at the numbers are in my proposal, but I think this year it's about $7 million for bond debt service. That's entirely paid for by the water fund and not any of it by system development charges. I would, the city of Gresham has a very clear website on this, and they're pretty explicit with how they do it. And they ran through, I'm not going to lie, it was not a pleasant experience for them to address this, but they did. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, they were able to phase in these SDC charges to account for this debt that was incurred to support future development. So one of my, I agree that this is a complicated thing, right? It is not, and it is certainly beyond the scope of this meeting if we talk about how do we redress that money to the ratepayers in some form or another, whether the council chooses to. So I think part of this has to be a punt and a motion to have this SDC bond debt interest kind of dealt with by the Finance Committee. I think that is an appropriate vehicle to look at the historical allocation rates and decide whether they were appropriate and if and how redresses should be made. But for this year's budget specifically, it's really difficult to say that bond debt coverage is right when SDCs are still paying nothing. It's been highlighted in the comprehensive annual financial reviews forever with the little footnote saying we can't pay until the council says we can pay. And so I would kind of, for this year alone, I would move that we formally request the council to authorize the use of SDC payments for bond indebtedness, and we begin paying this year while the Finance Committee moves forward for next year. So that's one motion. It's written more clearly, but essentially the motion would be that we, for this fiscal year, apply the SDC calculated apportionment for debt coverage. And then for next year, we punt the continuing discussion for Finance Committee as to what to do with the $20 million in the back mirror. So that's one of the things, and it's pretty big. The other one was, we talked about the shifting of the purchase of the land. We talked about that. There's a few of those, but I think the SDC one is probably the one I would like to get out and get as much, see if there's any interest in appetite for addressing that, because that's, frankly, a huge multi-million-dollar line item on the water fund. And I know that we're coming into water rates in July, and it would be nice to have this, at least in process, in my mind, in process of being resolved prior to having to answer to the public about why the water rates are going up. So I would propose that amendment for this budget, that we apply SDC rates to the bond debt coverage. It wasn't something that was covered in any of the presentations, so I wasn't sure when the appropriate time to raise that was. So.
Councilor Schlack, do you have something to say?
Were you planning on doing a temperature check on that particular motion?
Yes.
Okay,
Would you like to?
I can reserve my comment until
Okay. Councilor Shaw, do you have anything to say now, or would you like me to do temperature check on the amendment?
Go ahead and do a temperature check. I'm just concerned for those of us online who are blind to what materials have been presented. So I do not think it's germane for this conversation, but I will go ahead and vote to check.
Yeah, as I said, there are 2 budget committee members who never got the handout, and then to be honest, I haven't had a time to read it. So I think instead of doing a temperature check on the amendment, I just want to do a temperature check on whether there's an appetite to have the meeting on June 1st to consider your amendment. So I will start with Councilor Anderson. Yes or no? You want a June 1st meeting?
Actually, I'm going to be out of town. But Jeff, so are you considering raising the SDCs? Because, you know, that's quite a...
Yeah, so I can speak. You know, I don't have good numbers because I'm doing this. I mean, the numbers in here are accurate, but like if I were guessing, if we believe, right, that we should be apportioning development pays for what it uses, if we believe that is the case, then absolutely SDC rates are going to go up. And they're going to go up significantly.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it because we're talking about $2 million. The money's got to come from somewhere, right? And so right now, for the last 8-10 years, we've been kind of bleeding it out of this large water fund that we seem to be using as kind of our slush fund for a lot of projects. And that's not appropriate. I apologize for that. But to me, this is a great time. Let's be honest about what we're really going to do with special development charges. I don't see, you know, I agree that it might be challenging to meet on the 1st, but as a simple concept, I'd like to get a temperature check whether people even agree that they should be applied to debt coverage, maybe. We'd start there and then see if there's an appetite for discussion after that.
I'm not opposed to that, but to raise the SDC, it's a complicated formula, and we have to talk to the home builders. It does significantly raise the price of new homes, and so I'm opposed to it at this level.
Thank you. Councilor Shah.
I'm opposed to it for the same reasons.
Councilor Schlack. Go ahead. Yeah, Eric, you have something to say?
I just wanted to make a clarifying comment on the debt coverage comment from Mr. Darland. So from a debt covenant standpoint, we are required to disclose SDCs as a potential. If for some reason the water fund was insolvent, we would have the ability to pull from SDCs. So that is a requirement from the debt governance. It does not mean that is a policy directive that has to be used.
Understand. I think what I'm getting at is this is absolutely a policy choice, right? And I think I'd like it clearly out there in public where people are sitting with this policy choice.
Councilor Schlack.
I'm opposed for tonight and making, or I'm opposed to scheduling a June 1st meeting. I'm open to further consideration if this is a policy discussion for the council. And, you know, my question was going to be, if we were to pursue some changes, could a supplemental budget be used at a future point, or we could just wait until, again, I encourage further discussion and perhaps tee it up for next fiscal year.
Thank you. Councilor Patterson Wolf.
Yes, I'm curious to learn more, and Jeff, I appreciate the input, but certainly want to hear from Director King, Acting Manager Brian Rager as well, so that we all catch up. Because I also am not one that can process and respond, and certainly need that time for feedback. So I am curious to have a study session or something, get up to speed, and then have an SDC conversation. I think this is a multiple conversation. Oppose June 1st and oppose the conversation for this evening because it is policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Robbins.
I'm opposed to scheduling a June 1st meeting to review this. I don't think that's enough time. I'm opposed to this as written. I do believe that community development is already planning to evaluate and redo our SDC funds over the next year. That's a long-term project that we're going to do. We can always take this into account. I have full confidence in our finance team, and I would want to learn more from them about the viability of this. And so I don't feel comfortable just blanket raising SDCs at a meeting here at the Budget Committee. I would want to know a lot more.
Councilor Gudusi.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with my fellow councilors. I don't think we have enough time to get a feasibility study and evaluation of the SDCs in the next few weeks. It'll be a longer-term discussion.
Thank you. Derek?
I'm not sure how increasing SDCs beats the council's goal of increasing affordable housing stock. So, I mean, I oppose it in principle, just period. So opposed.
Thank you. Kelly?
Opposed.
Yusuf?
Opposed.
Bill?
I support the idea in principle that growth should pay for itself, but I'm kind of with a number of people that just a little bit too much to digest today.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm opposed.
Well, Ethan, Aaron, you don't have to say anything because there's not enough vote. So do you want to say something? Do you want to vote on it? You don't have to. There's not enough votes.
I was just going to kind of add to the general consensus, opposed for tonight, opposed for June 1st meeting, but would love to hear more about it and learn more about it once the council and city staff has had a chance to package it into a nice organized presentation for next year's cycle.
Aaron, do you have anything to say?
I agree that I don't think that it's, that we can work it now or June 1st, but I think that it is something that needs to be considered later.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I echo everything, and I'm intrigued, and I understand where you're coming from, Jeff. I'm a existing homeowner and ratepayer, and I do want to think that what I pay for is fair. But at the same time, there's a council goal of creating more different kind of housing, affordable housing, what you said. So I'm concerned about just raising SDCs and how that works with council goals. So.
I just want to clarify, and I'm not trying to, because I want to make sure, frankly, I want to get this formally on the record because I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I want to clarify, I did not come at this saying raise SDCs. That's not what I said. I said allocate SDCs the appropriate amount. And I think it's, we got to be honest, we want affordable housing, but somebody is going to have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you can squeeze the peach only so much. And I think we should be looking at what are the realistic barriers, and I think Proud Ground is headed in the right direction to that. But I think, honestly, the real barrier to affordable housing is the fact that all of us want our houses to be worth a lot of money. And so we're at odds with each other. So when we give somebody $200,000 to stretch them to go into a new house where they're off miles away from a grocery store, it's not making housing cheaper in the short run. 0.1% of our housing. So for me, I think we want cheap housing, but we need honesty about where the money's coming from. And I think that's fundamentally what all of these motions are aimed at, is blowing the smoke and being honest about where the money's going, and then being honest about what we value, right, in the community about support. And I think it's hard when we talk about shifting money only in one fund when all the big actions happening with this other stuff. And so for me, that's a little bit of the challenge that I was having, and I appreciate that some of this is not going to be doable in this budget cycle.
Yeah.
But I think some of it is absolutely worth raising.
Yeah, and the majority of council expressed desire to learn more. So thank you for bringing those things up, and I appreciate it. All right, so far, so after taking temperature check of all the amendments, looks like we have at least 8 committee members who support Schlack/Wolf amendment. So I would just attempt to clarify what that is. So currently, the Schlack amendment is appropriating $36,000 of unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Fund to restore the funding for library staffing and appropriate the remaining $2,714,000 to the Parks Utility Fund to address a projected operation fall. But the Wolf amendment would take $500,000 of that $2.7 million back to the general fund. So the Schlack-Wolf amendment will be appropriate $36,000 of unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Fund to restore funding for library staffing and appropriate the remaining $2,214,000 to the Parks Utility Fund to address the projected operation fall. So I will call that Amendment 1A. Did I phrase that correctly?
That is my understanding.
Okay, Council President Wolf, is that correct? Yeah.
It's currently in general now already.
Okay, so that's what appear to have a support for. So let's move on to the fun part, motions. All right, so I'll go on with the script. So first motion we'll make is the state revenue sharing motion.
Mayor, if I'm reading the script correctly, I believe we need to pass an motion to approve amendment.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right.
1A, if that's sufficient.
Yeah, so please make a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve the budget with amendment number 1A, fund balance transfer and gap funding. And just to be clear for the record, that would be appropriating $36,000 from the unexpired or unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Bond to restore funding for library staffing associated with the Adult Services Librarian and Youth Services Librarian positions, as well as appropriating the remaining $2,214,000 of unanticipated fund balance from the Parks Bond to the Parks Utility Fund to support fiscal year 2027 operations and partially address the projected operating shortfall identified for the fund.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion being moved by Councillor Schlack and second by Council President Wolf. I will conduct a roll call according to my vote tally sheet. Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Councillor Schlack.
Yes.
Council President Wolf.
Yes.
Councillor Robbins.
No.
Councillor Gudusi. Derek.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Joseph.
No.
Bill.
Yes.
Jeff. No. Ethan.
Yes.
Aaron.
I'd like to clarify, this is for the amendment itself, not the entire budget.
Yeah, it's just the amendment itself.
Yes.
Yes. And I would say yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the motion carries with a vote of 10 to 4. All right, so let's move on to the state revenue sharings. So a motion is required to receive the city's portion of state revenue sharing. And Council President Wolf, would you like to make a motion?
I got to get caught up. Yes.
Mayor, would you like me to make a staff report on the state revenue sharing?
Oh, this is staff report. Okay, sorry. I jumped the gun, so.
That's okay, it's 9:38, so.
All right, so go ahead, please have the
understand.
staff presentation.
So for state revenue sharing, this is when we certify the city provides at a minimum of 4 out of 7 services. And so those 7 services are police, fire, street maintenance, sanitary and sewer, storm, planning and zoning, and at least 1 utility service. And so of those 7 services, we provide everything except for fire. And additionally, this, as a requirement, the city is required to hold a public hearing, which is this meeting, in order to receive state revenue sharing. And so the city is eligible to receive state shared revenue for an estimated $625,000, which is from cigarette, liquor, and marijuana tax.
All right, so Council President Wolf, would you like to make a motion to receive the $622,000 in state revenue sharing for fiscal year 2027?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. Sorry, if I could make a point of order, sorry.
Yes.
Mayor, on the script, we do have to hold a public hearing for this section.
Okay, so I have to open the public hearing?
Correct.
Oh, all right, thank you. First time, host time, yeah. Oh, so I opened the public hearing for receiving state revenue sharing. And
Yeah. And then roll call vote.
oh, roll call vote, okay. It's a second, right? Who seconded? Okay, Bill seconded. All right, so I will now conduct a roll call vote approving Tiger to receive the city's share of state revenue sharing. If you are in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. And I will go again with my own sheet here. Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw.
Yes.
Councillor Schlack.
Yes.
Council President Wolf.
Yes.
Councillor Robbins. Okay, that's fine. Councillor Gudusi.
Yes.
Derek.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Yusuf,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jeff, Ethan,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I would say yes. So it passes by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee present. Thank you. And then, so let's move on to the presentation of debt services and levy property tax rate.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the levy or property tax rate, the city's permanent tax rate is $2.5131 per 1,000 of assessed value. That, if you've been to several of my presentation, that has been our static permanent rate since the passage of Measure 5 and 50. And then the local option levy rate that's been authorized by the voters is 29 cents per thousand. And then one thing to note additionally is that there is no additional GO debt obligations, so there's nothing to assess on that.
Okay, thank you. And open a public hearing again? Or no?
This does not require.
Okay, just go ahead. So a motion is required to levy the permanent property tax rate of $2.5131 per thousand of assessed value plus an additional 0.29 cents per thousand of local option levy property tax. Councilor Schlack, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, Bill, second again. Bill, second again. All right, so then we'll conduct a roll call again. Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Shaw.
Yes.
Councilor Schlack.
Yes.
Councilperson Wolf.
Yes.
Councilor Robbins.
Yes.
Councilor Gudusi. Derek.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Yusuf.
Yes.
Bill. Jeff. Ethan.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the motion carries by a unanimous vote of the Budget Committee. All right, let's move on. We're ready to approve the budget with any Budget Committee amendments and the technical adjustments. Is there a motion to approve so Councilor Anderson, would you please make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 City of Tiger budget and technical adjustment as presented and with the Amendment 1A with totaling of $218,454,300.
Should I repeat that?
Anyway,
I move to approve the fiscal year 2027 City of Tigard budget and the technical adjustments as presented, totaling $218,454,300 with Amendment 1A.
Is there a second?
Second. Wolf.
All right, so I will now take a roll call vote to approve the fiscal year 2027 City of Tiger budget. If you're in favor, please say yes. If opposed, please say no. Again, Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Order.
Yes.
Do we have any discussion between making the motion and having the final vote? Do we have any final discussion?
I thought we already discussed all the amendment, but if you want to if you want to say anything, please welcome.
Thank you. This has been a lot of hard work, and I want to be a team player, but I cannot, in good conscience, support a budget that will have essentially a $500,000 surplus now and not save the social services position, even considering it a part-time position or something. We've moved this money with kind of ideas about what we're going to use it for, but now we have a surplus, and we've had significant outpouring from the public to consider saving this position, and we're not going to do it, so that bothers me.
Councilperson Wolf.
Thank you, Councilor Robbins, and I think that's more than fair, and I can see calling it a surplus, that's actually not my intent. My intent is we hopefully have an outstanding new city manager headed our way, and we have an expired strategic plan, and maybe we can ask our leadership team before we adopt the budget by council to talk about the city manager budget. I just feel like it's our responsibility to preserve some of our funds for a new leadership team to assess what it is that they want to do for the city of Tigard as they move forward, because we are far from a surplus budget, in my opinion. I would just say I've requested funds to be set aside strategically as we move forward under new executive leadership. So just wanted that opportunity to reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I can see my computer's dead, so Councilor Shaw or Derek, if you have any comments? No? Okay. Councilor Shaw, we're still considering the adoption of the budget. Yes or no?
Yes.
Councilor Schlack,
Yes.
Council President Wolf,
Yes.
Councilor Robbins,
No.
Councilor Gudusi,
Even with the amendment, this doesn't provide sufficient funding for our libraries and stops the support of the Bird Alliance, so no.
Derek,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Joseph,
No.
Bill,
Yes.
Jeff.
I can't support it in its current form.
Okay. No? Okay. Ethan,
Yes.
Aaron,
No.
and I'm a yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait. Yeah, 9 to 5. So the budget's adopted with a vote of 9 to 5. All right, so finally, a motion is required to approve the Town Center Development Agency. So I will ask Councilor Shaw to adopt a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 Town Center Development Agency budget with the budget appropriation totaling $7,472,616.
So moved, Mayor, and saving my voice. I will,
Thank you.
Copy exactly what you've said.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Schlack, I second.
Thank you. So the motion to adopt the TCDA budget is being moved and second, and I'll go down the list again. Those if you are in favor, say yes. If not, say no. Councilor Anderson,
Yes.
Councilor Shaw,
Yes.
Councilor Schlack,
Yes.
Council President Wolf,
Yes.
Councilor Robbins,
Yes.
Councilor Gudusi.
No.
Yeah, what? No? Okay. Derek,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Joseph,
No.
Bill,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ethan,
Yes.
Aaron.
No, and I'd like to take this opportunity to resign from my position at the, as part of the Budget Committee. Thank you.
Okay. And yes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3. So the motion passes with a vote of 11 to 3. All right, thank you, Budget Committee, for your time and commitment to approving the fiscal year 2027 budget. Are there any final comments? Councilor Shaw and Derek, I could not see you, so I just assume you don't have any comments. All right, so thank you. The fiscal year 2027 City of Tigard Budget Committee is now adjourned. So good night, Tiger.